Chapter 1044. The Holy Emperor's first heavenly layer constantly emitted Saint Force. It drifted around the Moonlight Barrier and was quickly refined into Moonlight Force, increasing the barrier's power. This can't go on. The more Saint Force you emit, the stronger the barrier will become. Hurry up and leave, a great elder of a protector clan sternly said. If all your Saint Force is devoured, you won't be able to leave even if you're a holy emperor. Hurry up and leave while you still have some Saint Force left. Someone in the crowd began to persuade him. If his Saint Force continued to be devoured by Moonlight Force, it would be extremely disadvantageous for all of them. The Holy Emperor's complexion had already turned into the same color as the moonlight. Hearing everyone's persuasion, he hesitated for a moment before standing up shakily. He walked out of the barrier with regret and reluctance. At the same time, he did his best to suppress the Moonlight Force in his body in an attempt to slow down the rate at which his Saint Force was being devoured. Very soon, he arrived at the edge of the barrier. Just as he was about to leave, he was stopped by the barrier. Pum! The Holy Emperor's first heavenly layer immediately roared out. He swung his curved blade at the barrier with all his strength, but the barrier did not even shake. The Moonlight Force in the sky began to condense. Another dense mass of moonlight sword chi appeared, emitting a tremendous pressure that filled the entire bright moon divine hall. At the same time, the strange killing intent that could invade a person's body appeared once again. It actually fused with the moonlight sword chi, causing it to become even more powerful. The Holy Emperor's second heavenly layer. The attack this time has already reached the level of the Holy Emperor's second heavenly layer. Everyone be careful, a Holy Emperor loudly warned from the crowd. As soon as he finished speaking, the moonlight sword chi that filled the sky rained down, blotting out the sky as they shot toward everyone. Jian Qin stood there without moving at all. He allowed the moonlight sword chi to strike him. His clothes had already been reduced to pieces, and his body was covered in white marks. These were all left behind by the moonlight sword chi. A few more cries rang out. The moonlight sword chi was just too dense. A few more weaker Holy Emperor experts were injured by the moonlight sword chi. The strange moonlight sword chi remained in their bodies and began to devour their Saint Force. In the distance, a group of Saint Rulers and Heaven Saint Masters stared blankly at the scene unfolding before them. The Holy Emperor experts were supreme existences in their eyes. They were existences that stood at the apex of the pyramid. They possessed great statuses and were respected by everyone. Yet now, so many Holy Emperor experts had actually been reduced to such a miserable state. Many of them found this unbelievable. After all, there were quite a few Heaven Saint Masters and Saint Rulers who had entered the Divine Hall this time. This was the first time they had seen a supreme expert at the Holy Emperor level. The Moonlight Sword Chi is constantly strengthening. If this continues, it'll reach a level where we won't be able to resist it. We can't just sit around and wait for death. We need to break through this barrier as soon as possible, a Holy Emperor expert yelled out. Immediately, over a dozen Holy Emperor experts drew their saint weapons. Vast amounts of Saint Force violently surged within the barrier before striking it at the same time. Boom! With a great boom, the terrifying shockwaves of energy pushed the Saint Rulers and Heaven Saint Masters back. The frail Class 6 Radiant Saint Masters were quite heavily injured. On the other hand, Yu Yu and Karolivy were unharmed due to the protection of their saint artifacts. The barrier immediately began to shake violently after taking on the combined attacks of over a dozen Holy Emperor experts. However, it did not shatter. What a powerful barrier! A Holy Emperor could not help but sigh in amazement. His face became even more stern. The Saint Rulers and those below Saint Ruler in the distance had already retreated a certain distance. They were basically pressed against the barrier. All the injured Heaven Saint Masters sat down to heal their wounds, while the Class 6 Radiant Saint Masters were wrapped in milky white light. They were using Radiant Saint Force to heal their wounds. After taking on the combined attacks of over a dozen Holy Emperor experts, the moonlight sword chi that permeated the barrier began to boil. It condensed into a dense mass of moonlight sword chi in the air once again. However, there were far fewer of them compared to before, but their power had greatly increased. Swish, swish, swish. With a series of ear-piercing sounds, the sword chi that filled the sky shot toward everyone at an unbelievable speed. Although there were far fewer of them, they still blotted out the sky, making it impossible for anyone to dodge. They could only face them head-on. After the wave of attacks, another 3 Holy Emperor experts were struck by the moonlight sword chi. Although the injuries were not fatal to them, the power of the moonlight sword chi was extremely strange. It lingered in their bodies and devoured their saint force. They were unable to expel it no matter how hard they tried, forcing them to use their full strength to resist and slow down the consumption of their saint force. This wave of sword chi has already reached the level of a Holy Emperor at the 3rd heavenly layer. If this continues, the next wave of sword chi will reach the level of a Holy Emperor at the 4th heavenly layer. After that, it'll continue to grow to the 5th heavenly layer, the 6th heavenly layer, and so on until all of us die here. If we allow this to continue, all of us will die. None of us will be able to survive. Everyone, don't hold back. Use your full strength to break through the barrier. The 2 old ancestors of the ancient aristocratic families said from the crowd. This time, no one stayed out of the battle. All of them attacked with all their might at the same time, sending out attacks capable of shaking the heavens and the earth at the barrier. Jianqin also drew his emperor armament and attacked the barrier with all his strength. Jianqin's chaotic body had already reached its limit after blocking the wave of moonlight sword chi. If he still could not break through the barrier, the next wave of moonlight sword chi would be enough to break through his chaotic body. Although he did not know whether the moonlight sword chi could devour his chaotic body, he was unwilling to take the risk. Boom! With a great rumble, the powerful moonlight barrier was finally broken through under the combined attacks of all the Holy Emperor experts. It turned into dense moonlight sword chi that drifted through the divine hall. Everyone could not help but relax when they saw that the barrier had finally been broken through. However, before they could celebrate for too long, a cold voice rang out in the air. Those who refuse to listen will face the consequences of entering the bright moon divine hall. With that, a layer of pure moonlight suddenly appeared. It shone with a dazzling light like the sun. 9 balls of light hovered above the statue of Fairy Hayue in the center of the plaza. Every single ball of light shone with bright moonlight. From afar, it seemed like 9 miniature moons hovered there. Rumble, the bright moon divine hall began to violently shake. One of the 9 moons that hovered above the statue of Fairy Hayue suddenly expanded. It shone with dazzling moonlight, forcing everyone to close their eyes involuntarily. However, when they opened their eyes, they discovered that the scene in front of them had changed beyond recognition. The familiar scene of the bright moon divine hall had already disappeared, and what entered their eyes was a desolate land. As far as the eye could see, there was nothing but a large expanse of dry land. All the holy emperors' faces became ugly when they saw this. They all realized that they had fallen into another formation, and the holy emperor who had been injured at the very beginning had been caught in the formation as well. It was possible to say that all the holy emperor experts who had entered the bright moon divine hall had gathered together in this formation. Is this the scenery of the moon? The great elder of the Changyang clan stared at the surroundings in interest as he asked in doubt. It doesn't matter if this is the scenery of the moon or not. We have to break through this formation as soon as possible. This place is definitely not safe. And that voice that suddenly appeared earlier, was it Fairy Hayue's voice? The great elder of the Yuan sect said with a sunken face. His eyes were filled with unease. Many people's faces changed when they heard that, but someone retorted very soon. Fairy Hayue passed away several tens of thousands of years ago. It's impossible for her to still be alive. That voice must have been left behind by her. At this moment, a mysterious suction force silently appeared and revolved around everyone. It slowly pulled at their saint force, causing it to spread outwards. Everyone's faces immediately changed. They all sat down and resisted the suction force with everything they had. However, no matter how hard they tried, they were unable to stop the saint force from spreading. Jianqin also sensed a mysterious and strange energy around him. It seemed to be attracting the chaotic force within him to spread outwards. The chaotic force within him became restless as well, as if it was about to break free from his control and drift out of his body. However, chaotic force was not something that Saint Force could compare to. As Jianqin tried his best to control it, the restless chaotic force immediately calmed down. It did not spread outwards like the Saint Force of the Holy Emperor. What a strange formation. What a strange energy. Even I can't stop the energy from spreading. Since that's the case, I'll break through this formation. I'd like to see if this formation can block an attack from me. Blackfish. He Yu raised his head to look at the sky, and his gaze became extremely sharp. A silver-white machete had already appeared in his right hand, and it emitted an enormous pressure that made one's heart tremble. This was a weapon that possessed origin energy. With this weapon, Yu could unleash attacks as powerful as Saint Emperors and contend against Saint Emperors. On the top floor of the Bright Moon Divine Hall, there was a completely sealed room. An extremely beautiful woman with an illusionary body sat on a piece of pure white jade with her eyes closed. Suddenly, her face became filled with shock, and she snapped open her eyes. She cried out, "Origin energy! This is origin energy! How is this possible? How can origin energy still exist in this world? Hasn't origin energy been sealed away by a formation in the distant space of the universe? How can there still be origin energy?" The woman with an illusory body stood up from the jade stone. Her emotions fluctuated and she became extremely restless. From her illusory face, one could see that. Chapter 1045. Yu had already charged into the sky with a machete imbued with origin energy. He directly slashed at the sky with lightning speed. A dazzling saber light flashed. The saber light seemed to contain the power to destroy the world. The saber light tore through the air and immediately caused the space formed by the formation to tremble violently. Before the mountain-splitting saber had struck the formation was severely affected. It faintly showed signs of not being able to hold on. The experts trapped in the formation all stared at Blackfish. Their faces burned with desire and hope. All of them were tempted by the powerful weapon in Blackfish's hands, but none of them were bold enough to try and steal it. He's finally willing to take action. How can a mere formation trap us before his supreme strength that can rival the Holy Emperor? The experts from the Holy Emperor who knew about Blackfish's battle prowess all relaxed. None of them believed that the formation could block Blackfish's strike because it was just too powerful. Just sensing it from the side was enough to make them shiver. At the same time, the eyes of the illusionary woman immediately shone brightly in the completely sealed room on the top floor of the Divine Hall. She called out, "How can the likes of you destroy the 9 moons illusory formation that I, Bright Moon, personally cast down? My strength is limited, so I can't unleash the full power of the formation. But even so, it's still not something the Holy Emperor can destroy. Even Origin Realm experts will need to expend a tremendous amount of effort to destroy it. 9 moons merge." The illusory woman formed a seal with her hands, which constantly changed in front of her chest. Immediately, the other 8 small moons that hovered above the statue in the center of the square of the Bright Moon Divine Hall all fused into the first moon. The 9 moons completely fused into one. The people who were weaker than the Holy Emperor stared at this scene in a daze. They had completely lost sight of the Holy Emperor. All they could see was an extremely huge ball of light where the Holy Emperor had originally been. It seemed extremely similar to a moon, illuminating the entire hall with its pure moonlight. The full moon was condensed from a formation, so it was extremely profound. The space within the formation was known as a space where all the Holy Emperor experts were trapped. Blackfish's machete had already viciously struck the barrier of the formation within the formation. However, the 9 moons had already fused into one, so its strength had increased drastically. It was no longer as fragile as before, so Blackfish's attack only caused the formation to tremble slightly. It stabilized very quickly and did not shatter. Impossible! All the hopeful Holy Emperors' faces changed when they saw this. They immediately cried out as disbelief flooded their faces. Blackfish was clearly stunned as well. He lowered his head to look at the machete in his hand as disbelief filled his eyes. This formation has suddenly increased by a lot. With its current strength, even the Holy Emperor will find it difficult to break through. A deep voice sounded from behind Yi Qin. A deep voice rang out from beside Jian Qin. Hong Lian's eyes had already turned red, as if 2 balls of fire were leaping about. She was using a secret technique to observe the formation. Oh no, the suction of the formation has increased by a lot. The energy in my body is rapidly draining away. A cry rang out. Dense saint force covered all the saint kings present. The energy within them flowed away at a rate several dozen times faster than before. It was sucked out by the strange suction force of the formation space before dispersing. Even He Yu and Hong Lian were no exception. No one could stop them. Jianqin's face also became ugly. Now that the suction had increased, the chaotic force in his body that had just stabilized began to become restless again. Strands of chaotic force began to flow out of his body uncontrollably. However, the rate at which it flowed out was not as fast as the Holy Emperor's. A faint gray energy had already appeared around Jianqin's body. It emitted a destructive aura. Compared to the energy in the Holy Emperor's body, it was very different. Jianqin's chaotic force had obviously been noticed by the Holy Emperor's experts. However, no one paid any attention to it as they were unable to do anything about it. Jianqin's eyes were filled with anxiety. It was extremely difficult to replenish chaotic force. If he used too much chaotic force, he would not be able to endure it at all. Suddenly, Jianqin roared at the sky. His eyes shone brightly as he did his best to control the chaotic force. Under Jianqin's full control, the chaotic force within him immediately stopped draining away. The chaotic force that had already drifted out of his body began to approach him bit by bit. In the end, it slowly returned to his body. Strange. What kind of power is this? I can clearly sense how powerful it is. But why haven't I seen it before? The illusionary woman murmured in a secret room on the top floor of the Bright Moon Divine Hall. She frowned as she pondered. Suddenly, the woman seemed to think of something. Her eyes immediately lit up as she became filled with disbelief. I remember hearing about a powerful power called chaotic force from my father in the past. Why does this power seem so similar to the chaotic force my father spoke of? Is this chaotic force? However, the woman immediately shook her head and said, "That's impossible. How could the primal chaos force appear in this world? Isn't that a powerful force that can only be cultivated in that place?" But the characteristics of this power really are so similar to the chaotic force my father spoke of in the past. Is it really? The woman was surprised and doubtful, but her eyes gradually lit up very soon. A strange light filled her eyes as she sank into her thoughts. Jianqin, Blackfish, and the others had already worked together with all the Holy Emperor in the formation space. All of them unleashed their most powerful attacks without holding back at all, putting their lives on the line to break through the barrier. Aside from this, there was nothing else they could do. Jianqin drew his Emperor armament once again, while Blackfish and Honglian drew their origin energy weapons. All the Holy Emperor experts drew their saint armaments, and there were even a few king armaments among them. A terrifying pressure permeated the surroundings. At that moment, all the Holy Emperor experts with Saint Tier battle skills used their Saint Tier battle skills as well. They unleashed their full strength attacks at the sky, viciously striking the formation. With a boom, the formation space did not shatter after taking on everyone's full strength attacks. It only shook a little before returning to normal. Looks like we can only wait for death. This formation is just too powerful. Probably even the Holy Emperor won't be able to break through it if he personally comes. Many people were ashen as despair filled their eyes. They all sat on the ground and waited for death. Jianchen put away his emperor armament and sat on the ground as he did his best to control the chaotic force within him. He sternly stared at the world created by the formation. Just who is this Fairy Haoyu? She actually knows such a powerful and profound formation. There's no record of this formation in my inherited memories at all, Jianchen said in a deep voice. Han Lian said in a deep voice. She sat down cross-legged on the ground to control the energy within her body. Although she could not stop the loss of energy within her body, she could buy some time. It doesn't matter if we lose our energy. Our cultivation won't regress anyway. As long as we get out, we'll be able to recover after some time. What I'm truly worried about is how long we'll be trapped here. Will we be trapped here forever until the end of our lives? A Holy Emperor expert sat on the ground and murmured in a daze. Many people fell silent when they heard that. Their hearts were heavy. Before, they had indeed underestimated the bright moon Divine Hall and Fairy Haoyu. Outside the array space, Yu Yu and Kara Li Wei stared worriedly at the huge full moon in front of them that was formed by the array. It almost occupied the entire space, and the sacred artifact had already transformed into a palm-sized pagoda that floated above Yu Yu's head as it spun. It was secretly controlled by the artifact spirit, and did not need Yu Yu to control it personally. The saint artifact floating above Yu Yu's head naturally attracted the attention of many people. Many people looked at the saint artifact with eyes full of greed. However, no one dared to snatch it. Li Wei's barrier, Jianchen, and the others have been in there for so long. Do you think anything will happen to them? You asked Kara Livy. She was extremely worried. Kara Livy smiled. Don't worry, Sister Yu Yu. So many of them have gone in, and they're all Holy Emperor level experts. Nothing will happen to them. They'll come out very soon. Not everyone stood there waiting for Jianchen and the others to appear. A few saint rulers in the surroundings had already left, continuing into the depths of the Divine Hall. After what had happened earlier, everyone knew that the dangers hidden in the Divine Hall only targeted the Holy Emperor and would not harm them. At this moment, there was a flash of white light. A white tiger the size of a cat suddenly appeared before Yu Yu. Xiao Bai, why have you come out? Yu Yu immediately cried out in surprise when she saw the white tiger. The white tiger was the winged tiger in the artifact space. Xiao Bai seemed to sense that Jianchen was in trouble. As soon as it appeared, it stared at the formation in front of it. It ignored Yu Yu and directly disappeared into the formation with a leap. Jianchen sat on the ground in the formation space. Suddenly, there was a flash of white. The winged white tiger had already appeared beside Jianchen. Xiao Bai, why have you come in? Jianchen was extremely surprised when he saw the white tiger. All the Holy Emperor experts in the surroundings immediately looked at the white tiger. Xiao Bai sternly glanced around the space before roaring at Jianchen. It lifted Jianchen onto its back and immediately leaped to the side. The white tiger silently disappeared, leaving the formation space. Jianchen felt like he had collided with an invisible wall, immediately falling off the white tiger's back. He was not taken away by the white tiger, remaining trapped in the formation space. After leaving the array space, little white tiger turned around to look at its back and let out an anxious roar. Then it turned into a white shadow and leaped towards Sima Yu Yu at lightning speed. It opened its little mouth and bit down on the saint artifact that was floating above Sima Yu Yu's head. Chapter 1046. Little White wants to take the saint artifact in and take Jianqin, and the others out with it. Unfortunately, the saint artifact can't enter that place. Yu understood what the white tiger was trying to do very soon and murmured. The saint artifact shone with a hazy golden light as it revolved around the edge of the formation. Afterward, it returned to Yu's head to protect Yu. The white tiger opened its mouth in the artifact space. It knew that the saint artifact in its mouth had not entered with it at all. It immediately growled at the formation as its voice was filled with anger. Jianqin immediately understood what the white tiger was thinking after spending so much time with it. He said, "Little White, the formation that's trapping us is just too powerful. We can't break through it even if we work together. The only people who can help us right now are the people outside. As long as someone controls the Bright Moon Divine Hall, they can control the formation in the Divine Hall. Go out immediately and take Yu and Kara Livy to the depths of the Divine Hall. Enter the core of the Divine Hall and control the Divine Hall." The white tiger stared at Jianqin, who was seated on the ground as he struggled to control the chaotic force within him. Its eyes filled with worry before it growled, as if it was replying to Jianqin. "Little White, tell the artifact spirit not to let Senior Ruijin come out no matter what. Make him stay in the artifact space until we leave the Divine Hall. Also, the evil king who came with me from the sea race is still cultivating in the artifact space. Get the artifact spirit to contact the evil king and have him leave the artifact space to protect you as you head to the depths of the Divine Hall." Jianqin warned the white tiger repeatedly. Whether or not the people trapped here could escape all depended on the people outside. Otherwise, all the Holy Emperor present would die in the end. The white tiger left the formation with Jianqin's words and returned outside. It then passed on everything Jianqin said to the artifact spirit. Although the white tiger was still unable to speak, the artifact spirit could understand what the white tiger said. It immediately reported Jianqin's current situation to Yu and Kara Livy. Yu immediately paled in fright when she learned that Jianqin was in danger. Her face was filled with anxiety and worry, losing her usual composure. Kara Livy was also filled with anxiety. She tried her best to remain calm as she comforted Yu. "Sister Yu, don't worry. Don't we still have a way to save Jianqin? As long as we find the core of the Divine Hall and take control of it, we'll be able to save Jianqin safely." Yu clenched her hands tightly. Her palms were covered in sweat. Although they still had a way to save Jianqin, how are they supposed to break through the various obstacles and take control of the Divine Hall before a group of ruthless saint rulers? The white tiger had already entered the artifact space. The artifact spirit had already informed Ruijin, who was channeling energy into the 3 flaming jades, about what had happened outside. When Ruijin learned about what had happened outside, he immediately stopped channeling energy into the flaming jades. He frowned. "Ruijin, there's only one way to save Master right now, and that's to get the matriarch to take control of the Divine Hall and close off the formations inside. Master plans on calling a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler of the sea race to help the matriarch control the Divine Hall, but I'm not too confident about this person. Once he leaves the artifact space, I won't be able to do anything to him, which is why I've specially come to find you this time. I want you to leave a seal on him just in case," the artifact spirit said to Ruijin. Ruijin agreed without any hesitation. He said, "Our dragon clan has many secret techniques, and there are quite a few that can control people. Let the sea race person come over." Xie Wang, who was cultivating the cultivation method of the 8 wastelands, had been forcefully roused from his cultivation by the artifact spirit before being sent to Ruijin's side by the artifact spirit. "Xie Wang, Master has orders for you to immediately leave this space and assist the matriarch in taking control of the Bright Moon Divine Hall. However, in order to prevent you from doing anything excessive, we need to leave a seal on you. As long as you assist the matriarch seriously, nothing will happen to you." The artifact spirit made a long story short, explaining the mission and the situation outside to Xie Wang so that Xie Wang could gain a rough understanding. Xie Wang's eyes immediately lit up when he heard about the Bright Moon Divine Hall. He understood extremely well just how powerful a divine hall was, and he also knew that once he obtained a divine hall, he would be able to look down on 16-star experts. Unless he encountered an emperor, no one would be able to pose a threat to the person who obtained a divine hall. Although Xie Wang was tempted by the Bright Moon Divine Hall, he calmed down very quickly. He had not forgotten his current identity. He forcefully suppressed his stirring desire and said, "Don't worry, I'm not someone who bites the hand that feeds me. Since Jianqin has given me the cultivation method of the 8 wastelands to cultivate without any hesitation, I will never betray Jianqin in my life. If I do, I'm willing to accept the punishment of the heavens." Xie Wang said righteously, "Just in case, I'll leave a seal in your body. If you really do something out of line, I'll instantly wipe you out. Once this matter is over, I'll remove the seal for you." Ruijin looked at Xie Wang in interest. Although Xie Wang had never seen Ruijin before, he definitely belonged to Xie Wang's side since he could appear here. At the same time, he could vaguely sense a chilling pressure from Ruijin, so he knew that the middle-aged man before him was definitely a terrifyingly powerful expert. Xie Wang did not object to Ruijin leaving a seal in his body. He accepted it very calmly because he had no other choice. Afterwards, Ruijin used a secret technique of the dragon race to leave a seal in Xie Wang's soul. As long as he had the seal, Xie Wang's life would basically be in Ruijin's hands. If he dared to do anything out of line, Ruijin could wipe him out with a single thought. Xie Wang and the white tiger left the artifact space together and appeared beside Yu Yu. Yu Yu had already gained a detailed understanding of Xie Wang's identity from the artifact spirit, so she was not surprised to see Xie Wang. She only studied him curiously. This was the first time she had seen someone from the sea race. "Is this Jianqin's woman? I never thought she would be so weak." The evil king was also curiously sizing Yu Yu up. When he saw Yu Yu's strength, a trace of surprise appeared in his heart. "Yu Yu greets Senior Xie Wang. I hope Senior Xie Wang can take care of me." Yu Yu bowed to Xie Wang politely. She did not order him around just because he was Jianqin's follower. Yu Yu's attitude immediately made Xie Wang like her. He laughed and said, "You're Jianqin's woman, so you're not an outsider. There's no need to be so polite. Just treat me as an equal. You can just call me Xie Wang." Xie Wang and Yu exchanged some pleasantries before focusing on proper matters. Afterward, he led Yu and Kara Livy into the depths of the palace with the white tiger. Before Yu and the others left, quite a few saint rulers and heaven saint masters had already entered the depths of the palace. There were also a few heaven saint masters and class 6 radiant saint masters who gave up on the idea of entering the depths of the divine hall. They decisively left the divine hall and spread the news that the Holy Emperor had been trapped. There were still quite a few people hovering outside the Bright Moon Divine Hall, including the President, Grand Elder, and a group of people. Class 7, Radiant Saint Masters did not enter the Divine Hall. Class 7, Radiant Saint Masters possessed great statuses on the Tianyuan continent, where they were no weaker than Saint Kings. At the same time, they never participated in any of the battles on the Tianyuan continent, so the Bright Moon Divine Hall was not very useful to them. There was no need for them to risk their lives and enter the Divine Hall to take part in the battle for the Divine Hall. What? All the Holy Emperor experts who have entered the Divine Hall have been trapped? The expressions of the people from the Union and many of the people present changed drastically when they heard that. They became extremely unsettled, and the fear in their gazes toward the Divine Hall became even heavier. The formations in the Bright Moon Divine Hall only target the Holy Emperor and those above the Holy Emperor. Heaven Saint Masters and Saint Rulers will not be affected by the formations. A Heaven Saint Master who had emerged from the Divine Hall said loudly. A Holy Emperor expert who had just ripped open a spatial rift and was about to enter the Divine Hall immediately stopped when he heard that. He became surprised and doubtful. Suddenly, the Holy Emperor's eyes narrowed. He stared at the ceiling of the divine hall. A white-robed, middle-aged man stood proudly at the highest point of the divine hall. No one present knew when the man had appeared. At the same time, the middle-aged man seemed to have fused with the space there, becoming a world of his own. He stood at the highest point of the divine hall, and aside from the Saint King, no one discovered his existence. He seemed to be transparent, so it was extremely easy for people to overlook him. The Path Lord of Carnal Desires! The Holy Emperor recognized the middle-aged man with a single glance, and his eyes suddenly narrowed. At this moment, the Path Lord's evil face was rather pale. He stood at the top of the divine hall in a rather haggard manner as he muttered to himself, "This fairy Haiwa sure is extravagant. She actually went to the moon to gather materials to create such a powerful divine hall." The divine hall contains moonlight force, which is strange and powerful. It's far tougher than regular divine halls as well. Even if I want to break through it, it'll be extremely difficult. Chapter 1047. As the news that the Holy Emperor was forbidden from entering the bright moon divine hall spread, the hesitant saint rulers and a few heaven saint masters who had been waiting outside could no longer hold back their desires. They charged into the divine hall excitedly and vanished. Since all the Holy Emperor had been trapped in the divine hall, the saint rulers were the most powerful existences. This reignited the flames of hope in the hearts of the saint rulers who had given up on the bright moon divine hall. It was as if the bright moon divine hall was already within their grasp. With the influx of people, the number of people in the divine hall rapidly increased. Even ninth heavenly layer saint rulers had only just become heaven saint masters. Half of the saint rulers from the Radiant Saint Master Union had entered the divine hall as well, but none of the Class 7 Radiant Saint Masters had entered. Instead, they watched from outside and did not leave. They all paid close attention to who would obtain the divine hall in the end. Yu and Kara Livy made their way into the depths of the divine hall under the protection of the evil king and the white tiger. The palm-sized saint artifact followed them closely, hovering above Yu's head the entire time. At the highest level of the bright moon divine hall, the illusory woman was still sitting cross-legged on a piece of white jade. Her eyes were slightly closed, and nothing in the divine hall could escape her control. The woman slowly opened her eyes. A contemplative look appeared on her fairy-like face as she muttered, "I originally wanted to attract some geniuses to this place so that I can possess them and cultivate again. However, from the looks of it now, I don't need to use this method at all. A better choice has appeared before me. That's fine too. The origin energy of this world has been sealed. Even if I possess someone and cultivate from scratch, I won't be able to break through to the origin realm like the Holy Emperor. However, the chaotic body doesn't have this restriction, but just who was the one who cast down the formation in the distant outer space? Why did he seal up the origin energy? It's a pity that the formation is just too powerful. I can't break through it at all. Or how could I, Haoyue, have ended up like this? The layout of the bright moon divine hall was extremely complicated. Corridors crisscrossed everywhere, making it extremely easy for people to get lost. It was as complicated as a maze. Yu and Kara Livy lost their way very soon. They wandered through the messy corridors that would appear from time to time in hopes of finding the right exit. They had also tried to leave behind markings along the way, but they were unable to leave behind any markings in the divine hall no matter what method they used. They could only leave by luck. Yu and the others would come across a few heaven saint masters and saint rulers in the maze-like corridors from time to time, but there were no conflicts. There were a few saint rulers who wanted to travel with Yu and the others, but they were all turned down by Yu. Sima Yu and the others were trapped here for a full 3 days before they finally found the correct exit and arrived at the second level. During this time, they did not encounter the slightest bit of danger. It was as if this bright moon divine palace did not have any danger that targeted Saint Kings or those below the realm of Saint Kings. During those 3 days, saint rulers and heaven saint masters constantly entered the bright moon divine hall, causing the number of people in the divine hall to reach several thousand. However, most of them were only heaven saint masters. The news of the Holy Emperor being trapped had reached the ears of the 10 protector clans and the various ancient clans as well, immediately causing a great commotion. The protector clans treated the matter with great importance, and immediately, Holy Emperor experts hurried over from the protector clans. They stopped outside the bright moon divine hall with furrowed brows as they discussed how to save the people. Even Holy Emperor experts from Mercenary City had personally hurried over. The trapped Holy Emperor experts all sat on the ground within the formation space of the bright moon divine hall. They all did their best to suppress the loss of energy within them. Blackfish and Honglian had already donned origin energy armor, but it was still unable to stop the loss of energy. All it could do was slow them down. A few of the weaker Holy Emperor experts had already become pale. They gently trembled as they sat on the ground. Clearly, they were in great pain. In particular, the Holy Emperor experts who had been struck by the moonlight soared chi outside lay powerlessly on the ground. Their eyes were empty as despair filled their faces. They had lost all their energy. The loss of energy would not cause their cultivation to regress. Even if they had lost all their energy, they could replenish it outside. They would make a full recovery before long. However, the Holy Emperor experts were extremely frail after losing their energy, especially in the strange formation space. They were unable to use their Holy Emperor abilities. They were unable to control space and world force, reducing them to ordinary people. The only person who could still control the loss of energy was Jianqin. The strength and uniqueness of chaotic force could not be compared to regular energy. But even with that being the case, Jianqin needed to do his best to suppress it. I hope you can successfully obtain the bright moon divine hall, or we'll all be trapped here until we die, Jianqin prayed inside. In the blink of an eye, another half a month passed. During that time, who knew how many people had entered the bright moon divine hall? Figures could be seen everywhere, but most of them were heaven saint masters. In this half a month's time, Yu and the others had already passed through 8 levels of the maze and arrived at the 9th level of the bright moon divine palace. Without a doubt, the 9th floor of the bright moon divine hall was much smaller than the floors below it. As far as the eye could see, it seemed more like an extremely spacious hall. 9 huge stone pillars carved with simple patterns supported the roof of the hall. Every single stone pillar had faint moonlight force circulating around it, imperceptibly giving off a tremendous pressure. The interior of the hall was resplendent. All the stone tables, chairs, and other decorations were carved from the same type of jade. Every single one of them was extremely delicate and priceless. At the end of the hall, a majestic and imposing moonlight throne was suspended in the air. On the throne, there was a 2-meter-long scepter with exquisite craftsmanship. It emitted a hazy moonlight, and it was very beautiful. Yu and the others were not the first to arrive. Many saint rulers and an extremely small number of heaven saint masters had arrived before them. Although the hall was not packed with people, there were still several hundred people gathered. All of them stared at the scepter on the throne with shining eyes. No one made a sound at all. The atmosphere was extremely strange. Although the treasure was right before them, no one dared to go up and fight for it. All the people who could make it there were extremely intelligent. They all knew that whoever went up first would be the first to be surrounded and attacked by everyone. Even 9th heavenly layer saint rulers would struggle to survive. That scepter definitely isn't simple. There might be some secret hidden within it, and that throne is extraordinary as well. Xia Wang stared at the throne at the end of the hall and said softly, "Roar." The white tiger's eyes narrowed as a vicious light shone in them. He immediately leapt up and shot toward the throne as a blur. He completely ignored the several hundred saint rulers and heaven saint masters gathered there. Xia Wang did not follow him. Instead, he stayed close to Yu and Kara Libby, protecting them to the best of his ability. That's the winged tiger. The winged tiger wants to take the throne. Stop him! The scepter definitely hides Fairy Halua's cultivation method. It might even be something that can directly control the divine hall. We can't let the winged tiger obtain it. Whoever obtains the scepter will be able to control the divine hall. The strange atmosphere in the hall was immediately broken by the white tiger's actions. At that moment, no one hesitated any longer. They all charged toward the scepter as quickly as they could, and the white tiger at the very front became everyone's target. Immediately, over 20 saint rulers struck out at the same time, sending powerful sword chi toward the white tiger. Chapter 1048. Over 20 sword chi from the saint rulers shot toward the white tiger with powerful ripples of energy. None of the saint rulers held back in order to prevent the white tiger from approaching the throne. The little white tiger's eyes were fixed on the scepter. It did not even look at the sword chi behind it. However, just as the sword chi was about to hit it, its body suddenly enlarged. It turned into a 10-meter-long white tiger in an instant. The pair of huge white wings on its back were wide open. A powerful energy seemed to be brewing in the dark. Whoosh! With a violent gust of wind, the white tiger suddenly flapped its huge white wings behind it. Two huge gales immediately formed, colliding with the sword chi behind it. Meanwhile, the little white tiger's 10-meter-long body increased its speed explosively. Like an arrow released from a bow, it flew towards the scepter at a speed several times faster than before. The powerful sword chi from over 20 saint rulers collided with the two tornadoes from the white tiger. With a series of muffled booms, they were torn to pieces by the violently spinning tornadoes. After blocking over 20 strands of sword chi, the tornadoes dispersed as well. The saint rulers behind it were obstructed, allowing the white tiger to successfully approach the huge throne in the air. The throne did not have any defensive measures, so the white tiger leapt onto it without any resistance. It then grabbed the scepter with its mouth and immediately turned back. It turned into a faint blur as it leapt toward you. The winged tiger has taken the scepter. Go take it back. Fairy Halua's treasure is right before us. Stop the winged tiger. Whoever gets the scepter will obtain a great, fortuitous encounter. Everyone gathered there immediately fell into an uproar after the scepter had been taken away. There were even a few people who were unwilling to just watch the scepter be taken away like this, so they began to incite the crowd. Everyone's eyes turned red. At that moment, all the saint rulers gathered in the hall began to move. They surrounded the white tiger with great teamwork, surrounding the white tiger from all directions. Over a dozen saint weapons shot through the air with powerful ripples of energy, slashing toward the white tiger's huge body with lightning speed. Over 20 strands of sharp sword chi accompanied them. The attacks formed an invisible net in the air, sealing off the surroundings and sealing off all paths of retreat for the white tiger. The white tiger's majestic body stopped in the air as a vicious light shone in its eyes. It then raised its head and tossed the scepter in its mouth into the air. It opened its huge mouth and produced a deafening roar. Immediately, a visible sound wave rapidly expanded in all directions with the white tiger at its center. The sound wave possessed unimaginable offensive power. When the sound wave collided with the saint weapons and sword chi, the sword chi all dispersed, while the saint weapons in the hands of the saint rulers violently trembled. It was as if an invisible force was stopping their advance. Not only were the saint weapons unable to advance at all, but they were also constantly pushed back. The sound wave expanded extremely quickly, reaching the entire hall very quickly. It swept past everyone and immediately caused their clothes to become tattered, making them seem like beggars. Miserable cries rang through the entire hall. The white tiger's roar contained the pressure of a divine beast. It was extremely penetrative and could harm the soul. All the heaven saint masters, with weaker souls, clutched their heads as they cried out in pain. Only the saint rulers were able to endure it, but they were still in pain. Their souls were still heavily affected. Although the white tiger had not reached the peak of Class 7, it was still an ancient divine beast, the winged tiger. It possessed inherited memories and powerful abilities. Its battle prowess was even more shocking. Just a single roar was enough to intimidate many ninth heavenly layer saint rulers. The combined attack of tens of saint rulers collapsed under the divine beast's roar. Little white tiger did not continue to tangle with them. It held the scepter that fell from the sky in its mouth and leaped towards you. Leave the scepter behind, or don't even think about leaving. The saint rulers recovered very quickly. They all charged toward the white tiger fearlessly. Before such a great temptation, all of them had lost their cool. The only thought in their minds was to obtain the scepter. At that moment, the white tiger became the public enemy of everyone present. All the saint rulers joined in the encirclement of the white tiger. They attacked the white tiger with their full strength without holding back at all. A few saint rulers in the distance had already begun to charge up their saint tier battle skills. The white tiger seemed to be angered as well. It produced a deep roar as heavy killing intent radiated from its vicious eyes. It aggressively charged toward the saint rulers who blocked its path. The pair of wings on its back flapped violently, creating powerful blades of wind that shot toward the saint rulers in front of it. The saint rulers knew just how powerful the winged tiger was. They all acted like they were facing a great enemy, swinging their saint weapons as hard as they could to block the blades of wind. Boom! With a great boom, the blades of wind collided with the saint weapons. A powerful ripple of energy immediately erupted, causing the blades of wind to disperse. The saint rulers were quickly blown away by the ripple of energy and the recoil from their weapons. At this moment, over a dozen saint rulers approached the white tiger. Their saint weapons shone with dazzling light as they tore through the air, swinging toward the white tiger with lightning-like speed. The white tiger's first shone with a hazy white light as it used its wings to block the full-powered attacks from the saint rulers. When the saint rulers' saint weapons landed on the white tiger's wings, all of them felt like they had struck soft cotton. The surging saint force within the saint weapons completely vanished in a single moment. Oh no! All the energy in our saint weapons has been absorbed by the winged tiger's wings, a saint ruler cried out as disbelief filled his face. After the little white tiger's divine wings absorbed the energy from the dozen saint weapons, they were no longer as white as before. Instead, they had gained some other colors. However, in the next moment, the white tiger's wings suddenly flapped. The energy it had absorbed from the saint weapons immediately erupted like a flood, forcing all the saint rulers near it back. At this moment, a pressure that seemed to originate from the world suddenly appeared. It firmly locked onto the white tiger, causing the space around the white tiger to become sticky. It's a saint tier battle skill. Dodge! All the saint rulers' faces changed when they sensed the chilling pressure. They immediately distanced themselves from the white tiger. Chapter 1049. The three saint rulers all came from ancient clans and were at the 9th heavenly layer of saint ruler. With their strength, they could unleash attacks as powerful as the Holy Emperor's saint tier battle skill. The white tiger had been kept busy by the saint rulers earlier, so the three saint rulers had enough time to charge up their saint tier battle skills. Now that the saint tier battle skill had finished charging up, it was about to erupt with devastating power. The pressure that seemed to originate from the world permeated the hall, causing everyone to shiver. They looked at the three saint rulers with uncontainable fear and shock. The white tiger's vicious eyes became stern for the first time. It could indeed stand above the saint rulers with its body as a divine beast, but if it faced attacks as powerful as the Holy Emperor's saint tier battle skills, it would be enough to threaten it. It was already too late to stop the three saint rulers from using the saint tier battle skill. The white tiger began to quickly swing its claws in the air before it. With each swing, the space before it would ripple slightly. Saint tier battle skill, Heaven Cleaving Sword. Saint tier battle skill, Life and Death Swing. Saint tier battle skill, Divine Fist of the Six Paths. With 3 loud cries, the 3 saint rulers used the saint tier battle skills they had been charging up for a long time. The first person, Gao Yi, swung his sword and produced a dazzling sword chi that shot toward the white tiger with unstoppable force. The curved blade in the second person's hand swung out in a profound trajectory. A faint ripple suddenly appeared, quickly extending toward the white tiger. Wherever the ripple passed by, space would violently tremble and become blurry. Although it was not very blurry, it still possessed a terrifying might. The third person's fist was covered by an extremely dense energy. It seemed to be slow, but it was extremely fast. When the fist struck out, his entire right arm disappeared. It was as if it had completely fused into the void, reaching into another world. However, in the next moment, 6 huge fists that were completely condensed from energy instantly condensed above the little white tiger's head. They rotated and intertwined with each other, and each fist gave off a terrifying aura that made one's heart palpitate. The white tiger waved its claws faster and faster. Gradually, it carved out an extremely complex formation in the air. The formation was hazy and unclear, but it exuded a profound aura. The lines and patterns seemed to contain the truths of the world. This was a defensive ability that originated from the white tiger's inherited memories. This was the first time it had used it. As soon as the formation was formed, it immediately enlarged and blocked the white tiger. Boom! With a great boom, the huge sword chi from the saint tier battle skill viciously struck the formation, causing it to tremble violently. It flickered, and the terrifying shockwaves of energy slammed into the walls of the hall, producing crackling sounds. The sky-severing sword and the formation were in a stalemate in the air. The energy of both sides rapidly drained away, but in the end, they failed to break through the formation. The formation dissipated due to the loss of energy. After blocking the attack of someone as powerful as the Holy Emperor, the formation dimmed. The patterns and diagrams on it became blurry as well. A few of the patterns had even broken. When the huge sword chi vanished, a series of faint spatial ripples struck the formation in front of the white tiger. At the same time, a huge fist descended from the divine fist of the 6 paths that rapidly revolved above the white tiger, directly striking towards the white tiger's head. Roar! The white tiger swung its head and threw the scepter in its mouth towards Yu. Afterwards, it let out a deafening roar towards the sky. A visible sound wave shot out from its mouth towards the divine fist of the 6 paths. The formation in front of the white tiger was no longer as powerful as before. After being struck by the second saint tier battle skill, it only lasted for a short while before loudly shattering. Strange ripples rapidly spread towards the white tiger's huge body like water, passing by the white tiger's body. The white tiger's body trembled slightly. A faint trace of blood had already appeared under its neck. Fresh blood immediately surged out from its body, dyeing its white for red. A terrifying energy shockwave came from above. The first punch of the 6 realms' divine fist was broken by the sound wave spat out by the little white tiger, but right after, the second and third punches followed closely behind, bringing along an enormous pressure as they struck towards the little white tiger's head and back. Their speed was extremely fast. The divine wings on the white tiger's back curled up high, blocking the divine fists aimed at its back. Its front claws danced about, directly blocking the punch aimed at its head. Following a series of rumbles, the white tiger that was floating in the air was sent back to the ground by the 2 divine palaces. Its divine wings were already injured, and its snow-white fur was dyed red. Even its front claws were dripping with blood. Taking on 3 saint tier battle skills at the same time. Even if the white tiger was a winged tiger with great battle prowess, it would still be hard for it to remain unharmed. After all, its strength was not even at the peak of the 7th step. Seeing the scepter flying over, the eyes of the evil king that had been guarding Yu flashed. He immediately flew out and grabbed the scepter with one hand, then returned to Yu's side. He first looked at the scepter curiously, then handed it over to Yu Yu without any hesitation. At this moment, Yu Yu's entire attention was focused on the white tiger. She did not even glance at the scepter that countless people were fighting over. Seeing that the white tiger was injured, she became even more anxious. She anxiously said, "Little White is injured. Artifact spirit, quickly go and save Little White." "Matriarch, don't worry. The winged tiger won't be in any danger, and it hasn't experienced much battle since it was young. This is a rare opportunity for it." The artifact spirit's voice rang out in Yu Yu's head. "The scepter has been taken by someone else." Someone yelled out. Everyone's attention immediately shifted from the white tiger to Evil King, who was holding the scepter. They no longer cared about watching the exciting battle, and all charged towards Evil King. Evil King's face drastically changed. Although he was a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler, his battle prowess was nowhere near the winged tiger's. He was no match for everyone, especially when there were quite a few people who had also reached the 9th heavenly layer. The remaining 3 fists of the 6 divine fists also changed targets. They no longer attacked the white tiger, but aggressively smashed towards Evil King and the others. "Quick, take the scepter and enter the artifact space." Evil King anxiously yelled at Yu Yu. Yu Yu also understood the current situation, so she immediately took the scepter from Evil King. She wanted to hide in the artifact space, but after waiting for a long time, she remained where she was. However, Cara Livy beside her had already disappeared. She had already entered the artifact space. "Oh no, Matriarch. I can't take you into the space with the scepter. The scepter is resisting me." The artifact spirit's stern voice rang out in Yu Yu's head. Chapter 1050. As the 6 Paths Divine Fist changed its target, the terrifying pressure that came from the heaven and earth ruthlessly pressed down on the Evil King and Yu Yu. Xia Wang's face became extremely stern. The 6 divine fists was a saint tier battle skill after all. The might of this punch had already reached the limits of the Holy Emperor. It would be extremely difficult for him to block it with his strength as a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler. Arg! The Evil King let out an explosive roar towards the sky. A surge of water blue light crazily gushed out from his body, and then all of it condensed on one of his fingers and pointed towards the 6 divine fists that was bombarding towards him. A thumb-sized finger force emitted a dazzling blue light as it pierced through the void, bringing with it a trace of destructive aura as it shot towards the 6 divine fists. This was a powerful offensive ability that Xia Wang had comprehended from the cultivation method of the 8 wastelands. Although it was not as powerful as a saint tier battle skill, it had reached the level of a pseudo-saint tier battle skill. Yu Yu was locked onto by the 2 6 divine fists, so the pressure she endured was even greater. With her strength that was not even at the Earth Saint Master level, she was unable to block it at all. Her face immediately paled as a sliver of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Before the 6 divine fists had even reached her, just the terrifying pressure had injured Yu Yu. With a boom, Xia Wang's strand of finger energy collided with the 6 divine fists. The strand of finger energy that had reached the pseudo-saint tier battle skill was still not as powerful as a true saint tier battle skill, so it dispersed as soon as it came into contact with Xia Wang. However, the 6 divine fists did not slow down at all as it continued towards Xia Wang. Bang! The power of the 6 divine fists, which had been weakened by more than half, fiercely smashed onto the Evil King's body, sending him flying like a sandbag as he coughed out blood. A dazzling golden light appeared above Yu Yu's head. The saint artifact that had been hovering above Yu suddenly expanded. In a short moment, it turned into a 30-meter tall golden pagoda that blocked in front of Yu Yu, taking on the attack for Yu Yu. Boom! Boom! Following 2 violent booms, the 2 divine fists of the 6 paths struck the saint artifact, but they did not shake it at all. The toughness of the saint artifact was not something that saint tier battle skills could destroy. Even though Yu Yu had the protection of a saint artifact, it still could not stop everyone's greed for the scepter. There were already several dozen saint rulers in all directions who charged towards Yu with bloodshot eyes. Normally, they might not dare to hurt Yu because of their fear of Jianqin. But at this time, in front of such a great temptation, many of them had already disregarded their own lives. Matriarch, throw away the scepter and enter the artifact space. Only then can I guarantee your safety. The artifact spirit's voice rang out in Yu's head. Although the artifact spirit was a holy emperor in the artifact space, his powers were greatly restricted due to his innate limitations. He was extremely weak in the outside world, so it was extremely difficult for him to protect Yu, who was surrounded by enemies. Yu looked at the scepter in her hand hesitantly. A sliver of reluctance appeared in her eyes. It was not that she wanted the scepter, but that the scepter might contain a way to save Jianqin. Matriarch, give up on the scepter and enter the artifact space first. Don't worry about the bright moon divine hall. Ruijin still has a trump card, the artifact spirit urged in a hurry. With that, Yu finally made up her mind. She clenched her teeth and swung her hand, about to throw the scepter away. If you throw away the moon god scepter, you'll never be able to save the person you want to save. You better consider it carefully. At this moment, a pleasant female voice rang out in Yu's head. The sudden voice caused Sima Yu's heart to jump. However, she immediately clenched her fists and tightly gripped the scepter that she had almost thrown away. Her beautiful eyes were filled with shock as she scanned the surroundings. It was as if she wanted to find out who had spoken. You didn't throw the moon god scepter away. You've already made your choice. Don't worry, you'll be fine. The same voice rang out in Yu's head again. The voice was vague, so only you could hear it. It was impossible to tell where it came from. Suddenly, the scepter in Yu's hand erupted with extremely bright moonlight. An extremely terrifying shockwave of energy erupted from the scepter, sweeping through the surroundings like a storm. It blew away all the saint rulers who charged at Yu far away. Even the saint artifact above Yu's head was not spared. It was blown far away by the shockwave of energy. The shockwave of energy from the scepter did not distinguish between friend and foe. Aside from Yu, everyone present, including the white tiger, the evil king, and the saint artifact, was blown far away. In the blink of an eye, not a single person could be seen within a radius of several hundred meters from Yu. She seemed to be the only one present as she was enveloped by the powerful moonlight. Yu stared at this scene in shock. She struggled to imagine that the scepter that had always been extremely quiet would actually possess such terrifying power. She found it hard to believe. Without waiting for Sima Yu to come back to her senses, she suddenly felt her body tighten. She was already wrapped in a mysterious power and flew into the air. She flew quickly towards the throne that was floating at the innermost part of the hall. Stop her! Once she obtains the bright moon divine hall, we won't have any more chances. A saint ruler who had been blown far away by the shockwave of energy called out urgently. He immediately climbed to his feet and charged toward Yu as quickly as he could. He wanted to stop Yu from approaching the throne. The rest of the saint rulers no longer cared about their injuries. All of them wanted to obtain the bright moon divine hall and would not allow Yu to take away the treasure that they coveted so much. They all joined the ranks to surround Yu. Terrifying ripples of energy appeared as all the saint rulers struck out with their full strength. Various powerful attacks shot out from all directions, all targeting Yu. Yu was completely enveloped by the dense moonlight from the scepter. When the attacks of the saint rulers struck the layer of moonlight, they all collapsed. They were no longer able to harm Yu, who was enveloped by the moonlight. Yu managed to make her way to the throne without any obstructions under the protection of the moonlight. She then sat down on the throne with the scepter in hand. Chapter 1051. Where is she? Why has she disappeared? Looking at the empty throne, everyone cried out in surprise. their faces full of astonishment. Suddenly, a saint ruler who had used a saint-tier battle skill seemed to think of something. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes, and he immediately shot toward the throne. However, just as he approached the throne, there was a flash of white. The bloodied white tiger suddenly appeared before him. It opened its mouth, and a fist-sized ball of energy shot out from the white tiger's mouth. Bang! With a heavy sound, the ball of energy from the white tiger struck the person's chest and exploded. The 9th heavenly layer, Saint Ruler's chest, was reduced to a bloody mess. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood as he was blown away. Many people saw the Saint Ruler's actions. After thinking about it slightly, quite a few of them understood his intentions. Without any hesitation, they all leaped toward the throne, wanting to sit on it. Roar! The white tiger roared at the sky. It stood guard around the throne, preventing anyone from approaching it. Although it was heavily injured, its presence did not decrease at all. Instead, it seemed to have become slightly more powerful than before. However, there were just far too many saint rulers who charged toward the throne. There were also quite a few heaven saint masters who wanted to try their luck. The white tiger was unable to stop everyone by itself. 3 saint rulers had already leaped over the white tiger and arrived before the throne. They scrambled to sit on it at the same time. The throne hovered 10 meters in the air as it radiated with a faint layer of moonlight force. It was even larger than the throne, looking like a bed. It was enough for 4 or 5 people to sit on it at the same time. The 3 saint rulers sat on the thrones at the same time. They immediately felt faint joy inside, but before they could rejoice for long, their faces suddenly changed. In just a short moment, their presences completely vanished. They became extremely pale and haggard. Afterward, they fell off the thrones and heavily hit the ground. They could no longer get back up. Many people saw what happened to the 3 of them. A few saint rulers who were about to sit on the throne immediately stopped. They stared at the 3 people on the ground in shock. Oh no, there's something strange about the throne. We can't sit on it. The saint force within the 3 of them has been sucked dry by the throne, a saint ruler cried out. A saint ruler called out in fear. Immediately, all the people in the hall came to a halt and stopped around the throne. They were surprised and doubtful, and no one dared to sit on the throne anymore. In the blink of an eye, the hall that had been filled with an extremely intense battle fell silent. The bloodied white tiger stopped attacking as well. It stared at the throne closely. The saint artifact shrank back to the size of a fist and flew over. It stopped above the white tiger's head and slowly revolved. Now that Yu had vanished from the hall, the saint artifact had shifted its target to the white tiger. All of you leave. Leave the bright moon divine hall. At this moment, an indistinct voice rang out from within the hall. With that, a woman in white suddenly appeared on the empty throne. Her body was illusory, not corporeal, but she was as beautiful as a celestial being. She was like a fairy from the heavens. Why, you're fairy how you are. When they saw the illusory woman, the expressions of everyone present changed. Their faces were filled with disbelief. This was because the woman's appearance was exactly the same as the statue they had seen in the bright moon divine hall. Fairy Haoyue sat on the throne very casually. She was cold, like an iceberg that had not melted in 10,000 years. She gave off a feeling that she was unapproachable. She directly ignored everyone in the hall. Her cold, arrogant eyes only paused on the white tiger for a while. Fairy Haoyue, why? Are you still alive? Fairy Haoyue is actually still alive. All the saint rulers in the hall were thrown into an uproar. They became extremely emotional. Who was Fairy Haoyue? She was a supreme expert from several tens of thousand years ago, known as the strongest among the holy emperors. She was terrifyingly powerful. Yet now, the dead Fairy Haoyue was actually still alive. Just how exciting and surprising was this news? Many saint rulers in the hall had already knelt down. They politely bowed to Fairy Haoyue. Some of them even yelled out that they wanted to take Fairy Haoyue as their master. Fairy Haoyue frowned slightly. She became slightly impatient and coldly said, "Everyone leave. From now on, no one is allowed to enter the Bright Moon Divine Hall." Fairy Haoyue waved her hand, and a powerful moonlight force radiated from her throne, sending everyone to the first floor of the Divine Hall. In the blink of an eye, the top floor of the Divine Hall became empty. There was no longer anyone there. Afterward, Fairy Haoyue vanished from the throne as well. In the Bright Moon Divine Palace, in a completely sealed secret room, Yu, who was in charge, stood there with a blank expression. She looked around curiously and muttered, "Strange, why am I here? What is this place? Your name is Yu?" Suddenly, a cold voice rang out from behind her, causing Yu to jump in fright. Yu immediately turned around and saw that behind her there was a beautiful woman with an illusory body sitting cross-legged on a piece of jade, staring at her. Yu was immediately shocked when she saw the woman's appearance. This was because the woman's appearance was exactly the same as Fairy Haoyue's statue. "Why, you're Fairy Haoyue." Yu stared at Fairy Haoyue in shock as she cried out uncontrollably, "That's right, I am Haoyue." Fairy Haoyue's voice was extremely indifferent. Afterwards, she gently waved her hand, and the space there began to pulse violently. The scenery inside rapidly changed, and Gentian gradually appeared in the rippling space. This was only a scene. Fairy Haoyue had used a technique to capture the scene of the formation. Gentian! Yu could not help but cry out the moment she saw Gentian. Her face was filled with worry. "You care so much about this person called Gentian. May I ask who this person called Gentian is to you?" Fairy Haoyue stared at Yu calmly. "Gentian is my fiancé. Fairy Haoyue, please let Gentian go." Yu looked at Gentian pleadingly. She had originally come to take control of the Divine Hall and save Gentian. But now that she had discovered that the master of the Divine Hall, Fairy Haoyue, was still alive, Yu immediately gave up on obtaining the Divine Hall. Yu did not want to possess the Divine Hall. Her greatest wish right now was to save Gentian. Chapter 1052. Yu immediately became stunned when she heard that. She stared at Fairy Haoyue in a daze as disbelief flooded her face. Yu had heard the rumors about Fairy Haoyue from others long ago. The Fairy Haoyue possessed great talent and was an unprecedented cultivation prodigy. In just over 2,000 years, she had reached the peak of the Holy Emperor, only a step away from surpassing the Holy Emperor. Even in ancient times, no one could match her cultivation speed. Moreover, after reaching the peak of the Holy Emperor, the Fairy Haoyue had even ventured to the distant moon all by herself. She had set foot in that foreign land and used precious materials to construct the Bright Moon Divine Hall. Her abilities were so great, and her abilities so extraordinary that few people could match her even among the Holy Emperor. Yet now, the almighty Fairy Haoyue in Yu's heart had actually taken the initiative to accept her as a disciple. This great joy flooded Yu's entire soul, preventing her from returning to her senses in a short amount of time. Becoming a disciple of a Saint Emperor was such a glorious and prideful thing. If this had happened on the Tianyuan continent, it would be something that many people would not even dare to dream about. Yu had never thought that she, whose talent was far from being unprecedented, would actually be accepted as a disciple by a Saint Emperor of her own accord. Fairy Haoyue remained calm the entire time. She asked again, "Yu, are you willing to accept me as your master?" Yu finally calmed down. She forcefully suppressed her surging emotions and calmly asked, "Fairy Haoyue, you know yourself well. My posture is far from being unprecedented. May I ask why the Fairy Haoyue has chosen to accept me as a disciple? If Yu does not amount to anything in the future, wouldn't I be ruining your reputation? You're right. Your posture is at most 1 in a million. It's far from being unprecedented. However, The technique that how you, practice is so miraculous. This technique is something that my great father, the moon god, spent several tens of thousands of years to create for me. It's so miraculous that even if someone with ordinary talent practices it, they'll definitely have some accomplishments in the future. And there's also the divine hall that I painstakingly built in the past. I've sealed the essence of the moon inside. I only need to extract a portion of the essence and use a secret technique to change your body, and you'll be reborn. You'll have a body suitable for cultivation, Fairy Hayue swore. What? You use cultivation method was created by your father after several tens of thousands of years. I've heard that the Holy Emperor only has a lifespan of 10,000 years. Is your father an expert who has surpassed the Holy Emperor? You stared at Fairy Hayue in shock. A sliver of disdain appeared in Fairy Hayue's eyes when she heard that her father had surpassed the Holy Emperor. She said, "What's the origin realm?" If it weren't for the fact that the origin energy of this world has been sealed away by someone in the distant space, I would have reached the origin realm long ago. As for my father, you'll naturally find out once you become my disciple. You immediately knelt down and said, "Thank you for your kindness, for accepting you as your disciple." Disciple greets master. With that, you kowtowed 9 times to Fairy Hayue. Fairy Hayue's illusionary face finally revealed a faint smile. She said, "My good disciple, get up. You're my first disciple." With that, an invisible force lifted you up. Fairy Hayue continued, "My disciple, the moon god scepter in your hand was created from the materials I collected in the past based on the scepter my father gave me. I have no use for it now, so I've sealed a portion of the moonlight force within the scepter. Keep it with you in the future. It can provide you with some protection." Hearing this, you sized up the moon god scepter. She saw that the moon god scepter was made of an unknown crystal. It was as light as a feather. She couldn't feel any weight at all. The entire scepter was shrouded in a layer of faint moonlight energy. It emitted a hazy radiance. She could vaguely see the ancient patterns carved on the scepter. "Master, this disciple is puzzled. Can anyone who obtains the moon god scepter come here and be accepted as a disciple by master?" You asked. Fairy Hayue revealed a proud smile. "There's still no one in the world who has the right to become my disciple. Furthermore, I had no plans to accept any disciples before this. I naturally have my own reasons for the bright moon divine hall's sudden appearance. Even if someone else obtained the scepter, it would be useless because they wouldn't be able to take it out of the divine hall. However, I changed my mind due to a few reasons, so I made an exception and accepted you as my disciple." "Is it because of Genshin?" You probed. She already knew that the reason Fairy Hayue accepted her as a disciple was definitely because of Genshin. "All right, my disciple, there's no need for you to ask. You just need to understand that I have no ill intentions towards you. My body has already been destroyed, so I'm only a soul right now. As a result, even if you come across any danger in the future, my assistance will be extremely limited. However, once you practice my cultivation method, I'll give you control of the bright moon divine hall. This divine hall is something I'm proud of in the past. It's extraordinarily tough, and there are layers of formations within it. As long as you possess the divine hall, you'll be able to fend off origin realm experts for a while, even if you come across them. Master's cultivation technique is called the moon god's treasure insight. If you cultivate it with a special physique, your rate of progress will be greatly increased. Now, Master will use the moon essence sealed in the divine hall to rebirth you. After that, I will teach you the moon god's treasure insight, allowing you to control the bright moon divine hall and save the person you want to save." Although Fairy Hayue was only a soul, she still possessed absolute control over the divine hall. With a thought, extremely dense moon essence gathered from all directions, slowly approaching you as streaks of colorful light. In the end, it all entered Yu's body, altering Yu's constitution. Fairy Haoyue suddenly became rather dazed as she stared at Yu, who was enveloped by the dense moon essence. She thought, "Father, I'm not dead. I'll return to your side very soon, and I'll tell you about Nan Potion's scheme. Nan Patian is ambitious. He wants to take over Father's position and become the leader of the Moon God Hall. Now that so many years have passed, I wonder if you're well and if the Moon God Hall has fallen into Nan Potion's hands." As she thought about it, Fairy Haoyue's illusionary face suddenly became filled with worry. At this moment, on the first floor of the Divine Hall where Fairy Haoyue's statue stood, the huge formation space remained the same as before. It filled the entire hall, taking up most of the space. Not far away from the formation space, a large group of people stood there with looks of regret. There were even some people who were in a daze, as if they had lost their souls. These people were the ones who had been sent down by Fairy Haoyue from the top floor of the Divine Hall to compete for the scepter. Now, all of them knew that Yu had probably taken the Bright Moon Divine Hall away with the scepter. As a result, every single one of them felt extremely regretful and dejected. The evil king and the white tiger stood together. The fist-sized sacred artifact hovered above the white tiger's head as it revolved. At this moment, both of them were covered in blood. They were in horrible shapes, having suffered heavy injuries. I never thought that Fairy Haoyue would still be alive. You must have been taken away by Fairy Haoyue. She should be fine, but what happens next is no longer something we can control, the evil king said with a heavy voice. He felt rather helpless. Chapter 1053. Sigh. I never thought that after so much effort, the scepter would end up in the hands of a woman who's not even an Earth Saint Master. How ironic. A blood-soaked, pale-faced old man laughed in a self-deprecating manner. His face was filled with disappointment, and there seemed to be a sliver of envy as well. He was envious of Yu's fortuitous encounter. There's no point in continuing to stay in this Bright Moon Divine Hall. So be it. Instead of staying here with a face full of unwillingness and watching that little girl come out with a face full of happiness, it's better to leave now. Otherwise, it'll only add to the sorrow in my heart. The old man stared at the ceiling of the hall in a daze as he mumbled to himself. He left the Bright Moon Divine Hall in disappointment. Isn't it all because of the winged tiger? If it weren't for the winged tiger, the scepter would have ended up in our hands long ago. How could it have ended up in the hands of a weak woman? Don't you understand? The winged tiger did everything it could to stop us because it wanted the scepter for that woman. Sai, who told her to be Genshin's fiancée. She has a great backer like Genshin, so even the prideful winged tiger is helping her. Sai, my daughter, is around the same age as that woman. She's also beautiful and alluring. She's a rare beauty in the world. How great would it be if my daughter had some sort of relationship with Genshin? The surroundings buzzed with discussion. Many people sighed regretfully, feeling extremely reluctant to accept this outcome. This was because, apart from the scepter, they had not come across any other treasures in this trip to the Bright Moon Divine Hall. How could the group of powerhouses, who had worked so hard for so long only to obtain nothing in the end, be willing to accept this? Quite a few people in the crowd looked at the winged tiger with undisguised hatred and resentment. They were all rather conceited and confident in their own strength. They all believed that if it were not for the winged tiger, the scepter would have ended up in their hands long ago. Although many people in the crowd hated the winged tiger to the core, none of them dared to touch the winged tiger. They had all experienced the winged tiger's great battle prowess firsthand. They had only managed to heavily injure the winged tiger with their heaven-tier battle skills, so killing it would be even more difficult. Moreover, none of them knew whether the winged tiger was hiding any other abilities or secret techniques. All the people who had entered the Bright Moon Divine Hall were sent to the same place by the Divine Hall's power. At that moment, the number of people on the first floor of the Divine Hall suddenly skyrocketed, becoming densely packed. They had basically filled up the small space left in the Divine Hall. The experts who were still moving through the maze and had yet to reach the top also learned about what had happened at the top from others. They were all disappointed and regretful. After staying there for a while, they all left dejectedly. People constantly left the bright moon divine hall, causing the number of people in the divine hall to rapidly decrease. In the end, only around 100 people remained, including the winged tiger and the evil king. All of them stared at the formation space that trapped all the Holy Emperor worriedly. At the top floor of the divine hall, the illusionary fairy Hayue had already left the jade stone in the same secret room. She had left the jade stone for you, to meditate on. Yu was enveloped by a layer of dense moon essence as she slowly lay on the jade stone with her eyes closed. The dense moonlight force around her constantly seeped into her body, constantly modifying it. Fairy Hayue stared at Yu with mixed feelings. She thought, my father created the moon god's treasured mirror just for me. It's extremely profound, able to steal the fortune of the world. My father once told me that only I can practice the moon god's treasured mirror. If anyone else tries to practice it, they will be doomed. I wonder if I was right or wrong to pass this cultivation method to Yu. But my father once said that if others practice the moon god's treasured mirror, the flaws will only appear when they break through to godhood. With Yu's talent, it'll be difficult for her to reach the Holy Emperor's level of cultivation. Even if she uses heavenly resources, she'll only barely reach the level of a Holy Emperor. Now that she practices the moon god's treasured mirror and has her body modified by my moon essence, she'll be able to reach the level of a Holy Emperor at the very least. If she has origin energy, she might even be able to break through to the Holy Emperor realm, although she'll never be able to reach godhood in the future. She'll be able to live for quite some time at the very least. Speaking of which, I'm not trying to harm her. It had already been over half a month since the bright moon divine hall had appeared. A sea of people had already gathered outside the divine hall. The entire area was densely packed with people. Their strength varied from Heaven Saint Master to Holy Emperor. A few great elders from the 10 protector clans had all come. Even the Grand Elder of Mercenary City, Tianjian, had personally hurried over. There were also many ancestors from ancient clans. Many Holy Emperor experts had gathered together. They all stared at the divine hall with furrowed brows. The people who had emerged from the divine hall brought the latest news, letting everyone know that Fairy Hayue was still alive and that her image was still in the divine hall. At the same time, they learned that a weak woman had obtained the scepter and had been transported to an unknown place by the throne of the divine hall. The Holy Emperor experts from the ancient clans were naturally concerned about who the bright moon divine hall belonged to. As soon as they heard that the divine hall had chosen a woman who was not even an Earth Saint Master, they immediately felt that it was unfair. They even wanted to steal the divine hall. But as Yu's name spread, their wild ambitions were immediately extinguished. The ancestors of the ancient clans were familiar with Jianqin's fiancé. Although Yu was weak, she was proud of Jianqin, so the ancestors of the ancient clans did not dare to offend her. Although Jianqin was trapped in the formation and his fate was unknown, he still had the protector clan of Changyang Prefecture behind him. The protector clans did not care about the divine hall. They were all worried about the great elder trapped in the divine hall. The Holy Emperor was a supreme expert who stood at the apex of the world after all. Even the protector clans could not afford to lose him. At the same time, they were shocked by the fact that Fairy Hayue was still alive. However, people guessed very soon that the image of Fairy Hayue that the saint rulers had seen was most likely an imprint left behind by Fairy Hayue through her abilities, or perhaps it was because her soul had not been wiped out. I hope nothing happens to Changyang Shoten. He's the pride of our Changyang Prefecture. He's the future of our Changyang Prefecture. Changyang Zuyin Shao and Changyang Zhu Shao stared at the bright moon divine hall worriedly as they prayed inside. The two of them were the most senior members of the Zhu branch in Changyang Prefecture, and Jianqin was their grandson. As a result, The two of them cared about Jianqin very much. At this moment, with a flash of light, all the people who remained in the divine hall were transported out. Even the winged tiger and Xiaowang were no exceptions. Aside from the Holy Emperor and Yu Yu, everyone who had entered the divine hall left. Bang! With a heavy sound, the wide open door of the bright moon divine hall automatically closed. Afterwards, the entire divine hall began to glow with hazy light, directly breaking through the sky and flying into outer space. Without needing any orders, all the experts of the Holy Emperor followed the divine hall into outer space. Even quite a few saint rulers followed. Only the sky saint water remained behind helplessly, because outer space was not a place where heaven saint masters could set foot in. Ruijin emerged from the artifact space and sternly stared in the direction the divine hall had disappeared in. With a wave of his hand, he shot into the sky with the saint artifact and the white tiger, pursuing the divine hall. The majestic bright moon divine hall hovered in outer space. The entire divine hall radiated with a layer of moonlight that was visible to the naked eye. At this moment, it was possible to see strands of moonlight being absorbed by the bright moon divine hall from outer space. The bright moon divine hall has come to outer space just so that it can absorb moonlight force more easily, a Holy Emperor expert said in surprise. The bright moon divine hall is so intelligent. Someone must be secretly controlling it. It can't be Yu Yu. If that's the case, it must be Fairy Haoyue controlling the divine hall. Is Fairy Haoyue really still alive? Has her soul survived like the sea goddess? All the Holy Emperor experts guessed. They became more and more certain that Fairy Haoyue was still alive. Changyang Zuyinshao clasped his hands at the divine hall and said, "Esteemed Fairy Haoyue, I am the great elder of the protector clan of Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Zuyinshao. Our people from the Changyang Prefecture have offended you earlier by entering your divine hall without permission. Please be magnanimous and let them out." The bright moon divine hall was extremely quiet. Not a single sound rang out. Changyang Zuyinshao did not receive any response. "Fairy, how you stood in the air within the bright moon divine hall." She stared straight at Yu Yu and murmured, "You can't consume too much of the essence of the moon in the divine hall, or the defenses of the divine hall will weaken drastically. It'll be very difficult to activate many of the formations, and absorbing the essence of the moon in the air to refine your body will take an extremely long time. It'll take 3 months at the very least to complete it. Whatever, I'll just borrow their power. It may not be moonlight force, but I can convert it into moonlight force through formations." Fairy Haoyue changed her hand seals, and immediately the suction force in the formation space greatly increased, causing the Holy Emperor trapped inside to flow away at a much faster rate. It was actually several dozen times, or even several hundred times faster than before. What's going on? Why has the suction force suddenly increased by so much? All the experts from the Holy Emperor paled in fright. Their faces were filled with fear. After the suction force increased, all the remaining energy within them was sucked away in a single moment, leaving nothing behind. The Holy Emperor did not even have the strength to sit up after losing all his energy. He directly collapsed onto the ground. Half of the Holy Emperor, trapped in the formation space, had already collapsed onto the ground. The other half were relatively stronger, but they did not last very long either. They all followed in his footsteps and collapsed onto the ground. Even Ruijin and Honglian were no exceptions. On the other hand, Jianqin suddenly became relaxed. He stared at everyone in confusion, but he felt extremely surprised because he had discovered something. Chapter 1054. What's going on? Why can't I feel the suction anymore? Could it be that the suction force stopped targeting me after knowing that it couldn't suck away my chaotic force? Or has something else happened to the bright moon divine hall? Jianqin thought, it's already been so many days. I wonder how Yu Yu and the others are doing. Have they successfully taken control of the bright moon divine hall? At the same time, within the Huanggu clan hidden in a primitive forest, a woman in blue robes sat in the center of the room with her eyes closed as she cultivated. She was extremely beautiful, enough to dazzle the birds and beasts. She was a rare beauty in the world, enough to mesmerize thousands of men. A faint layer of blue light radiated from the woman's surroundings. Extremely pure, water-attributed Saint Force pulsed around her, causing the air in the room to become moist. Droplets of water covered the walls of the room. The woman was Huang Wan, who had been imprisoned by the ancestor of the Huanggu clan and forced to cultivate the scripture of the aquatic sunflower. Huang Wan had already been trapped here for several years by the ancestor of the Huanggu clan. She had been locked up in the room for all these years and had never left. She had completely lost contact with the outside world and spent all her time cultivating. Huang Wan possessed the water spirit's body, and the scripture of the aquatic sunflower was a high-level cultivation method that was extremely suitable for water-attributed Saint Force. As a result, Huang Wan had been diligently cultivating the scripture of the aquatic sunflower, increasing her strength extremely quickly. She was now a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master, only a step away from Saint Ruler. Although her speed was nowhere near as fast as people like Jianqin, Tai Ta, and the others, she would still be considered a rare genius on the Tianyuan continent. After several years, Huang Wan's bearing had changed drastically. The most obvious change was that she no longer possessed her past arrogance. She had become much more resolute and composed. Suddenly, the blue light surrounding Huang Wan's body disappeared. Her closed eyes slowly opened, and there was a trace of intense hatred hidden in the depths of her eyes. The scripture of the aquatic sunflower really is wondrous. After all these years of cultivation, I've gotten rid of most of the poison that old bastard left in me. Only a small portion remains, so it can't affect me anymore. I need to work even harder in the future. Once I become a Saint Ruler, I'll immediately break through the barrier that old bastard has cast around the room and charge out to fight him to the death. After that, the clan will definitely receive the news very quickly and find help to save grandfather. Huang Wan made up her mind as she made up her mind. After so many years of imprisonment, she had seen through many things. She knew that the Huanggu clan definitely wanted something from her by using the ancestor of the Huang family, Huang Tianba, to threaten her and force her to cultivate. As a result, Huang Wan had already made up her mind to die. The reason why she was still cultivating right now was so that she could break out of the sealed room and spread the news so that her great-grandfather could be saved. Suddenly, a heavy rumble rang out. The door to the room slowly opened and a plainly dressed old man slowly walked in. He was the ancestor of the Huanggu clan. "My good Luan, why aren't you cultivating again? You have to work hard and become a Saint Ruler as soon as possible. Once you become a Saint Ruler, I'll release your grandfather." The ancestor smiled at Huang Wan. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan smiled at Huang Wan. However, his smile seemed rather creepy in the gloomy room. "How is my grandfather right now?" Huang Wan forcefully suppressed her overwhelming hatred and forced herself to remain calm. She was still no match for the ancestor of the Huanggu clan. "Don't worry. Your grandfather is doing very well. I haven't mistreated him at all," the ancestor smiled. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan smiled, but his eyes remained fixed on Huang Wan. He was secretly surprised and thought, once a suitable cultivation method is found for the water spirit's body, the rate of improvement will be unbelievable. I never thought that this girl would reach the 6th cycle of Heaven Saint Master so quickly. The ancestor slowly arrived beside Huang Wan. He bit his index finger and squeezed out a droplet of blood in the air. Afterward, he used his finger to draw something in the air. "What are you doing?" Huang Wan's expression changed slightly when she saw what the ancestor was doing. She had an ill feeling and immediately retreated cautiously. A while later, a complicated glyph was drawn by the ancestor with his blood. It shone with a demonic red light and seemed to be filled with an evil presence. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan looked at Huang Wan and chuckled. "My dear disciple, don't worry. You're your master's treasured disciple. Master will never harm you. Come, my dear disciple, come to master." The ancestor slowly approached Huang Wan. The room was not large, so Huang Wan retreated to the wall very quickly. Although the door was open, there was a barrier protecting it, so it was impossible to escape. Even though there was no path of retreat behind her, Huang Wan did not show any fear. She knew that any resistance was futile before the ancestor of the Huanggu clan who had been a saint ruler for many years. So she closed her eyes and accepted it silently. The ancestor arrived before Huang Wan and smiled sinisterly. He slowly placed the glyph on the tip of his finger between Huang Wan's eyebrows. As soon as the blood-red glyph came in contact with Huang Wan's forehead, it immediately fused with her. Afterward, Huang Wan's face suddenly became filled with pain. She could not help but moan in pain. She felt like her head was in extreme pain, as if her soul was being ripped apart. The ancestor's sinister smile became even wider after the glyph successfully fused with Huang Wan's head. After a long while, the pain in her head finally receded. Huang Wan looked at the ancestor with a rather pale face and coldly asked, "What was that before? What did you do to me?" Chapter 1055. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan left. As the heavy door slowly closed, only Huang Wan remained in the gloomy room. Although she was hit by the blood slave seal, there was no trace of panic or fear on Huang Wan's face. She was very calm. She had already thought of facing death with equanimity. She simply did not care if her life was in the hands of others. Huang Wan returned to the center of the room and sat down. She was in a daze as reminiscence filled her eyes. She softly murmured, "Jianqin, I wonder where you are right now. How have you been in the past few years? I wonder if you've ever thought of me or missed me. Jianqin, the time we spent together and everything that happened will be deeply imprinted in my mind. I, Huang Wan, will never forget you. It's just that we aren't fated to be together in this life, so we can't be together forever. In the future, we might never see each other again. I never thought that after parting so many years ago, it would be the last time I see you." Huang Wan's expression suddenly became sorrowful. 2 lines of clear tears flowed uncontrollably from her eyes, leaving 2 clear tear stains on her beautiful face. They dripped onto the hard floor of the secret chamber and shattered into pieces. An intense sadness filled the secret chamber. The shattered teardrops were like Huang Wan's heart that had been completely shattered into pieces. In the blink of an eye, another half a month passed. In outer space, the Holy Emperor and Saint rulers from the 10 protector clans and many ancient clans were scattered, surrounding the bright moon divine hall. During this half a month, they had always waited there. None of them had left while the people of the protector clans and mercenary city tried to save the people trapped in there. The other saint rulers all stayed there to watch the show. They wanted to know who the bright moon divine hall would belong to in the end. During this period of time, the people from the 10 protector clans had already thought of countless methods and attempted countless times, but all of them ended in failure. The toughness of the bright moon divine hall was incomparable to ordinary divine halls. All of them were unable to open the door of the divine hall even after using all their strength. They could not even leave a mark on the divine hall. It's already been so many days, yet they still haven't come out. There's even no news of you. We have no idea what the situation is like in there. If we keep wasting time, I'm afraid it'll be even worse for the people trapped in there, a great elder of the Shenshao sect said with a heavy voice. He was extremely stern. We've already called out for so many days outside, and we've also attacked the Bright Moon Divine Hall. But the Bright Moon Divine Hall hasn't done anything at all. It's just floating here, absorbing moonlight force. I think Fairy Hao Yu is probably dead. If we keep waiting, the people inside will definitely be in danger. So I suggest that we use the Emperor armament of our protector clans and break through the door in one go to save the people inside, a burly, muscular man said. A tall and sturdy middle-aged man, dressed in black, also spoke. He was a grand elder of the Yangji sect, one of the protector families. The expressions of all the great elders of the protector clans changed slightly when they heard that they would use the emperor armament. They became hesitant. The emperor armaments of the protector clans were no ordinary emperor armaments. They had spent countless years fusing several dozen or even over 100 emperor armaments together through a special secret technique, gathering the power of all the emperor armaments. They were extremely powerful. Once they used it, they would suffer an extremely great backlash and would definitely be injured. Among the several dozen Holy Emperor experts trapped in the formation space of the Bright Moon Divine Hall, all of them, including Blackfish and Honglian, had lost all their power and collapsed on the ground. Many of them were ashen as despair filled their hearts. They no longer held on to any hope and were prepared to be trapped for the rest of their lives. At this moment, the space of the formation suddenly began to shake violently. All the scenes inside were rapidly changing, distorting, and gradually becoming blurry. The changes in the formation space alarmed all the Holy Emperor experts who had lost all their power. They immediately struggled to sit up as they stared at the space around them in surprise and doubt. What's going on? Has the formation begun to change again? Is it really going to kill all of us here? A Holy Emperor expert feebly asked. His complexion was extremely ugly. Everyone's faces immediately sank when they heard that. Their complexions became extremely ugly as well, but they continued to stare at the constantly changing scenery in the formation space. Very soon, the barren land created by the formation vanished. Everyone's vision darkened slightly. When they could see their surroundings clearly again, they discovered that they had returned to the hall of the Bright Moon Divine Hall. The statue of Fairy Haoyue stood nearby. The formation has disappeared. The formation has disappeared. We've returned to where we were before. The formation must have dissipated because it ran out of energy. We're finally free. We're finally free from that damned formation space. All the Holy Emperor experts became extremely excited when they discovered that they had broken free from the formation. They could not help but cry out in joy. In particular, the Holy Emperor experts who had already despaired were so excited that they could not speak. I'll give you 3 breaths of time. Leave the Bright Moon Divine Hall immediately, or don't even think about leaving this place for the rest of your lives. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly rang out. Fairy Haoyue's illusionary figure hovered above the statue in the center of the plaza. Her clothes were whiter than snow and were not stained by dust. She seemed otherworldly, as if she really was a fairy from the heavens. It's Fairy Haoyue. All the Holy Emperor experts immediately cried out when they saw the Fairy Haoyue on the statue. Disbelief filled their faces. No, it's a soul. It's Fairy Haoyue's soul. The Fairy Haoyue's soul actually still exists. The Holy Emperor experts all possessed extraordinary eyesight. They could not be compared to a group of saint rulers. They could tell with a single glance that it was only Fairy Haoyue's soul. However, even with that being the case, they were still greatly shocked. The Holy Emperor experts only had a lifespan of 10,000 years. Once 10,000 years was up, their bodies would be destroyed and their souls would disperse. It was impossible for them to live for long. However, Fairy Haoyue was someone from several tens of thousand years ago. Her soul actually still existed today. This was simply unheard of to them. 1 breath has passed. You have 2 more. Fairy Haoyue's voice rang out as she coldly stared at everyone. Chapter 1056. A sliver of hesitation appeared on Jian Chen's face as he watched all the Saint Kings run out in a hurry. He did not leave immediately. Instead, he glanced around and saw that the entire hall was empty. There was no one else aside from the people trapped in the formation. Esteemed Fairy Haoyue, may I ask what happened to the others who entered the Divine Hall? Jian Chen clasped his hands at the Fairy Haoyue's soul. He was most worried about you right now. Fairy Haoyue looked at Jian Chen. There was a sliver of undetectable surprise in her cold eyes, but her voice remained as cold as before. "They've all left!" Jianqin finally let out a sigh of relief when he heard that. Without saying anything else, he left with Blackfish and Honglian. As for the Bright Moon Divine Hall, Jianqin gave up on the idea of fighting over it after learning that Fairy Haoyue was still alive. Although Fairy Haoyue was only a soul, Jianqin did not dare to underestimate her at all. Jianqin left with Blackfish, Honglian, Kalalo, and Kaya Jinxiong. The great elder from Changyang Prefecture had left earlier. With everyone gone, the Bright Moon Divine Hall returned to its usual silence. Only Fairy Haoyue's soul remained on the stone statue in the rather gloomy and empty hall. Although I really want to know where their armor and weapons with origin energy came from, the two of them probably won't answer me if I ask them now. They might even make up a lie to trick me. I can see that their relationship with Jianqin is pretty good, and I've already accepted Jianqin's fiancé as my disciple. I'll definitely be interacting with them quite a lot in the future. When the time comes, it'll definitely be much easier for me to ask about origin energy through my disciple Yu. It's been so many years anyway, so I don't mind waiting a little longer. Jianqin definitely cultivates chaotic force. He walks an extraordinary path. He doesn't need origin energy to increase his strength. I really hope he can reach the origin realm sooner. That way, I might be able to return home through him. I hope nothing happens to the Moon God Hall. Father, you have to wait for me to return and expose Nan Potion's scheme outside the Bright Moon Divine Hall. The great elders of the 10 protector clans were hesitating over whether they should use the Emperor armament to save the people trapped inside. At this moment, the door to the Divine Hall suddenly opened, and the experts of the Holy Emperor, who had been trapped in the formation, stood at the entrance. They all excitedly glanced at the space outside as if they had just survived a disaster. They've come out. The people of the 10 protector clans and a few ancient clans were all excited. They all flew toward the Divine Hall and received the powerless experts of the Holy Emperor. Ruijin, Xiaowang, and the Winged Tiger arrived before the Divine Hall as well. When they saw Blackfish and Honglian, who had lost all their strength, Ruijin's face immediately changed slightly. He said, "I never thought that the two of you would end up like this, even with your strength. Looks like the dangers of the Bright Moon Divine Hall have far exceeded my expectations. The two of you should go recover in the artifact space first." Afterward, Blackfish and Honglian both entered the artifact space to recover their energy. "Brother Jianqin, I've used up all my energy, so it's inconvenient for me to return. May I ask if I can also stay in the artifact space for a few days to recover my strength?" Kalalo asked Jianqin. Of course. Jianqin agreed without any hesitation. He knew that the Kara clan definitely had many enemies. Kalalo would even struggle to escape if his enemies came looking for him in his current state. After Kalalo entered the artifact space, Kaza Jianxiong also requested to enter the artifact space to recover his strength. In the end, he was taken into the artifact space by Jianqin. Kaza Jianxiong and Kalalo were the same. They did not dare to return recklessly after losing all their strength. Changyang Ziyunxiao supported the great elder from Changyang Prefecture to Jianqin. After saying a few words of concern, he hurriedly left with the great elder from Changyang Prefecture. The saint rulers of the other ancient clans all went up to help their ancestors leave the Bright Moon Divine Hall. A portion of them returned to their clans, while a portion of them stayed behind. They wanted to see how the matter of the Bright Moon Divine Hall would end up. The Holy Emperor of the Protector clans, the Yuan sect, Changyang Prefecture, and the Pure Heart Pavilion chose to leave. 7 other clans remained behind. The people from Mercenary City did not leave either. Many of them still cared about the matter of the Bright Moon Divine Hall very much. Jianqin had already forgotten about the Bright Moon Divine Hall. He said to Ruijin, Senior Ruijin, "Is Yu fine?" Ruijin shook his head with that. Yu still hasn't come out. What? You still hasn't left the bright moon divine hall? Jianqin was surprised when he heard that. He immediately began to worry. At this moment, a powerful pulse of energy appeared behind him. Jianqin immediately turned around when he sensed the abnormality behind him. He saw that the bright moon divine hall had already stopped absorbing moonlight force and was rapidly shrinking. In just a few seconds, the huge divine hall had shrunk to the size of a fist, becoming a small, white divine hall. Without the shelter of the temple, a tall woman in a purple dress appeared in everyone's sight from behind the temple. "You're—" Jianqin could not help but call out in joy when he saw the woman, because she was Yu. Sima Yu stretched out her hand and beckoned, and the bright moon divine hall, which had shrunk to the size of a fist, immediately flew into her hand obediently. It emitted a gentle moonlight energy that enveloped Sima Yu's entire body, so that she would not be affected by the special environment of the void. Afterwards, Yu looked at Jianqin. She immediately became excited. "Jianqin, you finally come out safely. You hasn't let you down. I've successfully taken control of the divine hall and saved you." Jianqin took a step and crossed several hundred meters to arrive beside Yu. He was both surprised and overjoyed when he saw the bright moon divine hall in Yu's hand. He asked in disbelief, what did you just say? You've successfully taken control of the bright moon divine hall?" Yu immediately felt complacent when she saw Jianqin's shocked expression. She nodded firmly. "Then Fairy Haoyue." Jianqin hesitated. He was puzzled. The Fairy Haoyue was clearly still alive, so why would she hand over the divine hall to someone else? "Jianqin, Fairy Haoyue has accepted me as her disciple. Fairy Haoyue is now my master," Yu said rather complacently. She smiled sweetly. She was extremely happy. Jianqin was stunned at first when he heard that, but he soon became overjoyed. Yu could become Fairy Haoyue's disciple. This was even rarer than obtaining the bright moon divine hall. Yu and Jianqin's conversation was clearly heard by the surrounding saint rulers and holy emperor. After learning that Yu had actually obtained the bright moon divine hall and had even become Fairy Haoyue's disciple, the saint rulers who had entered the divine hall and missed out on the moon god's scepter felt extremely irritated. They felt even more regret and reluctance. The holy emperor from the ancient clans looked at Yu with deep envy, as well as some extremely deep jealousy. However, all of them knew about the relationship between Yu and Jianqin, so none of them dared to try and steal the divine hall from Jianqin. The people of the protector clans seemed very calm. Divine halls might be extremely precious to ancient clans, but they were nothing special to the protector clans that had a long history. Even ignoring how many divine halls they had passed down from their ancestors, they had obtained quite a few divine halls outside. What the protector clans truly desired was Fairy Haoyue's cultivation method. Chapter 1057. Yu roughly told Jianqin about her experiences in the bright moon divine hall so that Jianqin could understand. He was happy that Yu had obtained such a fortuitous encounter. Although Yu was only a heaven saint master right now, there were very few people who could reach that level at her age across the entire continent. At the same time, Yu's cultivation method had completely changed, so her rate of cultivation would skyrocket in the future. The experts from the ancient clans and hermit clans who remained in the surroundings all came up to congratulate Yu and Jianqin. They all smiled amicably as they showered them with compliments. It was obvious that they were trying to curry favor with them. Even 2 experts from the protector clans came to congratulate the 2 of them, vaguely trying to rope in Jianqin. Although the protector clans were envious of the fact that the winged tiger was by Jianqin's side and wanted to steal the winged tiger, Jianqin was no longer the weakling he once was. He was so powerful that even the protector clans feared him, unwilling to provoke him so easily. Since the winged tiger was by Jianqin's side, they obviously did not want to make things difficult for Jianqin. Jianqin was rather gentlemanly as well. He politely returned the greetings of all the people who came up to congratulate him, regardless of whether they knew him or not. Yu, on the other hand, displayed the demeanor of a great clan as well, returning the greetings one by one with a faint smile on her face. Now that the bright moon divine hall had accepted a master, the disturbance it had caused finally calmed down. The experts of the various clans who had been waiting in outer space all dispersed with mixed feelings. The Grand Elder of Mercenary City chatted a little with Jianchen before immediately leaving as well. Before long, only Jianchen's group remained in outer space. Yuer, let's go back first, Jianchen said to Yu before directly extending his arm to hug Yu's slender breasts. The White Tiger and Xia Wang had both entered the artifact space to heal. Yu did not resist at all. She smiled happily as she allowed Jianchen to embrace her. She gently leaned her head against Jianchen's shoulder, and the bright moon divine hall in her hand silently returned to Yu's hand. Jianchen left outer space with Yu and Ruijin, returning to the Tian Yuan continent. They landed above the Fragrance River. Although it had already been over a month since the bright moon divine hall had appeared, the influence it had on everyone's hearts did not recede at all. There were still many people who remained outside the Fragrance River in the City of God. Some people had even set up tents on the two sides of the river, gazing at the sky all day long. They all wanted to know where the bright moon divine hall would end up. Jianchen did not waste any time after returning to the City of God. He found Quan Yukai and Yang Ling. After chatting a little, he bid farewell to Quan Yukai and left with Yang Ling. Hong Lian and Blackfish were both recovering in the artifact space, so Ruijin was the only one accompanying them on the way back. They directly ripped open space and returned to the Changyang Prefecture in Lore City. After Jianchen and the others left, the ancestor of the Czar family, Zarfimor, stood on the roof of the Czar family. He stared in the direction Jianchen had disappeared in and murmured, Kara Lo of the Kara clan and Kar Jianxiong of the Kaza clan have both lost all of their powers and are extremely weak. Without the two of them, the Kara clan and Kaza clan are extremely weak. What a great opportunity presented before them. It's just a pity that Kai Yin. Sigh, I regret it so much. Zarfimor's face was filled with deep regret. On Three Saint Island, extremely far away from the Tian Yuan continent, Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu sat on a huge rock on Three Saint Island. They quietly played the zither in front of the vast ocean. Although their skills with the zither were nowhere near as good as the heavenly enchantress, they were still extremely skilled. Not only were the songs they played light and pleasant, but they were also able to calm people down. They also possessed a natural rhythm. Behind Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu sat a woman in a white robe. She was the second daughter of the Tianqin clan, Qin Qin. However, Qin Qin did not play the zither. Instead, she sat cross-legged on the edge of the cliff with her eyes closed, carefully listening to the zither music played by Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu. The replica zither of the demonic cry was placed firmly on her lap. After quite a while, Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu finally stopped playing. They slowly put the zither away and calmly stared at Qin Qin. A while later, Xiao Yu asked, Junior Qin Qin, do you sense the existence of the heavenly notes? Qin Qin slowly opened her eyes, and a sliver of confusion flashed through them. She shook her head and said, Seniors, I've heard you mention the heavenly notes many times already, but what exactly are they? We don't know what the heavenly notes are, because that was what Master told us back then. We only know that the heavenly notes are a kind of feeling, a strange feeling, a kind of feeling towards music. Only when you feel the heavenly notes can you be considered to have entered the way of the Guqin, Xiaoya said, a look of reminiscence in her eyes. Looks like our comprehension of the way of the zither is still lacking, so we can't sense the heavenly notes with our own strength. Perhaps only Master can play them. It's a pity that Master has been in seclusion for many years already. Who knows when she'll emerge? Xiao Qian said regretfully. Suddenly, Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu's eyes narrowed. They abruptly looked into the distance and saw a violet speck of light rapidly expanding at the horizon. It approached Three Saint Island at an unbelievable speed. A moment ago, the violet speck of light was still on the horizon, but in the next second, it had already appeared on the island. It was only 10 meters away from Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu. It moved with shocking speed. Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu's faces changed. They immediately became vigilant when such an expert suddenly visited Three Saint Island. However, when they saw the violet figure, they became stunned. They became extremely shocked and cried out at the same time, "Master!" The violet figure was the island master of Three Saint Island, the Heavenly Enchantress. The Heavenly Enchantress wore violet robes. She was noble and cold. She had her back to Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu as her beautiful black hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall. "Master, it's actually you. Weren't you in seclusion? Why have you suddenly returned?" Xiao Qian was surprised because they had never sensed the Heavenly Enchantress leave in the past few years. They had always believed that she was still in seclusion. "I just happened to be traveling when I was in seclusion, so I've only returned now." "Xiao Qian, Xiao Yu, has anything happened on Three Saint Island in the past few years?" The Heavenly Enchantress asked without even looking back. Her voice was cold and emotionless. Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu immediately understood after hearing the Heavenly Enchantress' explanation. Xiao Yu said, "Master, it's all thanks to you that Three Saint Island is as peaceful as before. Nothing major has happened." With that, Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu happily made their way toward the Heavenly Enchantress. Although the two of them seemed to be master and disciple to the Heavenly Enchantress, they were actually like sisters. When Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu arrived beside the Heavenly Enchantress, they just happened to see the Heavenly Enchantress holding an infant wrapped in cloth. They immediately became surprised. Master, whose child is this?" Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu said at the same time. They immediately moved their heads over and stared at the infant in the Heavenly Enchantress' arms in surprise. Chapter 1058. "Yeah, Master, this child is so pitiful. He has lost his parents so soon after being born. He's just too pitiful." The kind-hearted Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu immediately showed deep sympathy when they heard about the child's pitiful fate. Their gazes toward the child changed as well, becoming filled with love. "Master, let's let this pitiful child live on Three Saint Island in the future." Xiao Qian gently stroked the child's face with her soft, white hands as she pleaded with the Heavenly Enchantress. "Yeah, Master, let's let the child live on Three Saint Island. The island is so big anyway, and there's only the four of us. It'll be livelier with one more person," Xiao Yu suggested. Xiao Yu suggested as well. She liked the chubby baby in the Heavenly Enchantress' arms very much, and she felt even more pity for the baby's fate. The Heavenly Enchantress had already removed her veil, revealing her otherworldly beauty. She looked at the child in her arms with mixed feelings and gently sighed. "All right, since you like this child so much, we'll let him grow up on Three Saint Island." "Yay, that's fantastic. We'll have another member of Three Saint Island in the future." Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu immediately cheered. They were so lively that they seemed like little girls. "Master, the child still doesn't have a name. Why don't we give him a name?" Xiao Yu suggested. "Oh my, let me do that. Naming children is what I'm best at," Xiao Qian said excitedly. Xiao Qian excitedly fought for the right to name the baby. Then she pondered for a moment and said, "Master, this child is so cute. Why don't we call him Xiao Bao?" "Xiao Bao, that's not a bad name." "It sounds pretty cute," Xiao Yu said after some thought. The Heavenly Enchantress hesitated for a while before nodding in the end. She said, "All right then, let's call him Xiao Bao in the future." "Master, leave Xiao Bao to the two of us. Xiao Qian and I will take care of him in the future." Xiao Yu giggled before extending her arms to hug Xiao Bao. There's no need. The heavenly enchantress silently appeared 10 meters away and gradually left with Xiao Bai. She said, I'll take care of Xiao Bao. Xiao Qian, Xiao Yu, go down the mountain and find some high-quality milk. Xiao Bao's food will be provided by the two of you in the future. Yes, master. Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu replied at the same time. They were both dejected. Qin, rest for a few days first. I'll play a song for you in 3 days so that you can comprehend the heavenly sounds. The heavenly enchantress' voice slowly rang out, but she had already vanished. The heavenly enchantress currently sat on a large rock with Xiao Bao in her arms in a secret room on 3 Saint Mountain. She was in a daze. Her expression was extremely mixed, and there was some sorrow as well. Xiao Bao seemed to be able to sense the heavenly enchantress' sorrow. He began to babble as he stared at the heavenly enchantress with his innocent eyes. He waved his hands subconsciously. The heavenly enchantress looked at Xiao Bao and sighed inside. She said, in order to give birth to Xiao Bao, I was pregnant for 10 whole years. My strength skyrocketed at an unbelievable rate during that time, and I only reached my current level with the help of the dragon's saliva grass. Xiao Bao, are you my blessing or the root of my misfortune? From then on, another person was added to the 3 Saint Mountain. It was a baby boy, Xiao Bao. The Changyang prefecture in Lore City was filled with cheers. Jianqin's return immediately caused the prefecture to bustle with activity. Jianqin's status in the Changyang prefecture was unmatched. He was the pride of the prefecture, the pride of Changyang prefecture. He had won the respect of everyone. His return immediately caused all the old people in the prefecture to personally welcome him. They all looked at Jianqin with great pride and joy. These old people were all founding members of the Changyang prefecture, although they were not powerful, with most of them being Earth Saint Masters. Some of them were Jianqin's great-grandfathers in terms of seniority. In a corner of the Changyang prefecture, Jianqin's third brother, Changyang Ko, stared at Jianqin, who was escorted into the discussion hall by everyone with mixed feelings. He could not help but think about everything that had happened between him and Jianqin when they were young. He could still clearly remember that back then his fourth brother had been deemed as a cripple by the clan who could not cultivate Saint Force. His status in the clan was far lower than his own. Yet now the cripple who could not cultivate Saint Force had suddenly become a powerful figure who could shake up the entire continent with a stomp of his foot. On the other hand, Changyang's strength remained at the level of Great Saint Master, even though he had used up a large number of monster cores from the clan. He had not even reached Earth Saint Master. Big Brother has become a disciple of the Pure Heart Pavilion. Sister has become the holy maiden of the Ice Goddess Hall of unknown origins, and Brother has become a supreme expert whose name shakes up the continent. He possesses the strength of the Holy Emperor. Only I, Changyang Ku, have achieved nothing. I haven't even reached Earth Saint Master. Am I really a cripple? Changyang Ku laughed at himself in a self-deprecating manner. He was rather dejected. Out of the 4 children of the current patriarch of the Changyang prefecture, Changyang Ba, 3 of them had become renowned figures. Only he remained unknown, which was a heavy blow to him. Jianqin casually chatted with the various seniors of the Changyang prefecture before returning to his own room. Due to Jianqin's special status, he received special treatment in the Changyang prefecture. The luxurious palace-like residence he used to live in had been renovated once again. Not only was it much larger than before, but it also seemed even more grand and majestic. It was no weaker than the imperial palace of a ruler. The palace-like residence that Jianqin lived in had already become the symbol of the Changyang prefecture. It took up a third of the entire Changyang prefecture. As for the tower that Changyang Zhu Yinxiao and his wife had created with their abilities, it had already been destroyed by them. Jianqin felt rather helpless about the clan's plan to rebuild his residence. He really did not have any requests for it. He had also learned from his mother that the proposal to rebuild his residence had actually come from the ancestor of the Changyang prefecture, Changyang Zuyunkang. He had even obtained the agreement of everyone in Changyang prefecture, including Changyang Zuyunshao and his wife. That night, Jianqin drank to his heart's content with little Fatty, Wang Yifeng, Senior in Yunzhang, and Yangling in his own residence. They talked about everything under the sun as their laughter constantly rang out. Jianqin, I've already decided. Once you leave Changyang prefecture, Wang Yifeng, Senior in Yunzhang, and I will go out and train. We'll make a good trip on the Tianyuan continent. If we hide at home and cultivate every day, it'll be like building a cart behind closed doors. There won't be much to gain, little Fatty said drunkenly. His face had become bright red. Jianqin secretly nodded with that. Little Fatty's talent for cultivation was pretty good, but he was still young after all. He lacked experience. Making a trip on the Tianyuan continent would indeed be very beneficial to him. Du Gufeng is currently in Flame City. He's an elder of the Xing department and a disciplinary elder. He's in charge of punishing mercenaries who make mistakes. Ever since Yu left with you, the management of Flame City has fallen into Bai Lian's hands. She manages the city in an orderly manner all by herself, and she has also nurtured many members of the upper echelon who are adept at management. The city's strength is increasing with each passing day. Coupled with your reputation, Jianqin, it's already attracted several saint rulers to join the city. Great-grandfather Bai Hai has also gone with Bai Lian. He's responsible for her safety while supervising her cultivation. Chapter 1059. Deep into the night, Jianqin's residence finally quieted down. Little Fatty and the others all left, returning to their rooms to rest. Only Jianqin and a few female servants remained in the large room, cleaning up the table. Jianqin made his way outside and arrived on the roof with a gentle leap. Afterward, he lay on the roof and stared at the pitch-black sky. His deep eyes seemed to be able to pierce through space, allowing him to see the silver-white, divine hall hovering in outer space from far away. Yu was not in Changyang prefecture. She had entered the bright moon divine hall soon after returning to Changyang prefecture with Jianqin. Afterward, she was taken to outer space to absorb the essence of the moon to cultivate. After becoming the disciple of Fairy Haoyue, Yu's passion for cultivation reached an unprecedented level. She worked even harder than before. All she wanted to do was increase her strength as quickly as possible so that she could do a few more things for Jianqin and share some of the pressure with Jianqin. Jianqin lay on the roof as he stared at the pitch-black sky in a daze. A sliver of confusion appeared on his face as he murmured, "Why did Fairy Haoyue take Yu as a disciple? Yu's talent may be impressive, but it's only limited to a small country like the Kingdom of Jessen. It's nothing special on the Tianyuan continent. There are countless prodigies of great talent on the continent, and their talent is far greater than Yu's. Why didn't Fairy Haoyue take them as disciples?" Now that he had calmed down, Jianqin immediately thought of many things. Among them, the matter of Fairy Haoyue taking Yu as a disciple puzzled him the most. I don't think Fairy Haoyue taking Yu as a disciple is as simple as it seems. Fairy Haoyue probably has other intentions, Jianqin murmured as he sank into his thoughts. Suddenly, Jianqin's eyes narrowed. He immediately stopped murmuring and saw a black figure leap onto the roof. The figure stepped on the tiles gently as he slowly made his way toward Jianqin. Jianqin did not stand up. He continued to lie on the roof, using his hands as a pillow as he stared at the pitch-black sky. The black figure came to Jianqin's side and stood still. He then copied Jianqin and lay down on the roof. His movements caused the tiles on the roof to crackle. He said, "Fourth brother, it's already so late. Why haven't you slept yet?" Jianqin turned his head and looked at the black figure. He smiled. "Brother, aren't you awake as well? Sleeping right now is basically a waste of time for me." "Saya, brother, You've already become a supreme expert on par with the Holy Emperor. Even with the entire continent in perspective, you're a supreme expert. You really don't need to sleep to recover after reaching such a level of strength. Changyang gently sighed. His face was filled with sorrow. Brother, have you been well in the past few years? Jianchen asked, although Changyang had opposed him in almost every aspect in the past. That was only when they were children. Jianchen had stopped fussing about it long ago. He treated it as a child messing around. Sigh, brother, you, big brother, and second sister are all famous people. You're either supreme experts who rule over an entire region or geniuses who are highly valued by peak organizations. Only your third brother is still unknown, still stuck at Great Saint Master. Who knows how long it'll take for him to break through to Earth Saint Master. Do you think your third brother has been well these past few years? Changyang gently sighed as he became gloomy. Jianchen remained silent. Changyang's talent for cultivation was indeed nothing special. He was still stuck as a Great Saint Master despite the great efforts of the clan. His rate of progress was indeed rather slow. Changyang suddenly sat up and stared at Jianchen hopefully. He said, Brother, you're already a great person who reigns over a region. I know you're extremely powerful, so can you help me? I don't want to waste my time like this. I don't want to embarrass big brother, sister, and brother. Changyang's voice was filled with pleading. He had already mustered up a lot of courage to say that. Jianchen slowly sat up and said, Third brother, I still have a few heavenly resources on me. Once I go to Flame City tomorrow morning, I'll get the alchemists there to refine them into pills. They can change your constitution a little, although the system can be changed with heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Hard work is the key to determining future success. Brother, thank you. I will definitely work even harder in the future. Changyang was so excited that he could not control himself. He seemed to have seen a sliver of light in the darkness, a glimmer of hope for the future. The next morning, Jianchen left Yangling in Changyang Prefecture and went to Flame City with Ruijin. Currently, Flame City was even more bustling than before. Mercenaries streamed in and out of the city gates, as well as quite a few merchants who had come to Flame City for employment. Although the Flame mercenaries had suffered a great setback and almost collapsed, Jianchen's fame was just too great. Coupled with the fact that he was the captain, the Flame mercenaries were reorganized extremely quickly. In less than a month, not only had the Flame mercenaries returned to their peak condition, but they had become even more powerful than before. There were even a few saint rulers who came to join the Flame mercenaries. The current Flame mercenaries were already more powerful than many hermit clans. Coupled with Jianchen, who had once killed the Holy Emperor, the Flame mercenaries were no weaker than ancient clans. They had become one of the few peak mercenary groups on the Tianyuan continent and were renowned across the continent. The banner of the Flame mercenaries had basically become a life-saving talisman on the Tianyuan continent. This was because wherever the banner passed by, no one, be it bandits or people from large clans, would dare to offend it. They would all politely make way for it. As a result, when the Flame mercenaries carried out escort missions, everything was smooth sailing. They would only come across some ignorant magical beasts from time to time, resulting in some bloodshed. As a result, more and more merchants were willing to hire the Flame mercenaries. Jianchen hovered 1,000 meters in the air as he looked at the bustling city below with a gratified smile. However, when his gaze landed on the very center of the city, his eyes immediately narrowed and his face became rather ugly. At the center of the city, a huge stone statue that was over 300 meters tall stood there. It gave off an aura that looked down on the world as it gazed into the distance. It was like a king had descended, mighty and extraordinary. The person depicted on the statue was actually Jianchen. Moreover, it was extremely lifelike, as if it was a real person. Jianchen's face sank slightly. He took a few steps in the air and arrived above the statue in a few flashes. He directly struck the statue with his hand, and with a violent boom, the entire statue was pulverized by Jianshin's strike. It was reduced to a pile of dust that fell from the sky. He had actually destroyed his own statue with his own hands. The status of the statue in Flame City was irreplaceable because he was a legend on the Tianyuan continent. He was a legend on the Tianyuan continent. At the same time, he was a supreme expert on par with the Holy Emperor, the spiritual leader of the Flame mercenaries, Jianshin. The destruction of the statue immediately attracted the attention of all the people in the vicinity, and when they saw what they respected the most, when they saw the statue of their most revered captain being destroyed, all of them immediately fell into an uproar. Powerful killing, intent, and fury immediately rose up like a roaring fire. The captain's statue has been destroyed. Someone has destroyed the captain's statue. Which bastard did this? How dare he destroy our captain's statue? I'll cut him up personally. How dare he destroy our captain's statue? No matter who he is, I'll cut him into 1,000 pieces. All the mercenaries were thrown into an uproar when they saw the statue being destroyed. They all gnashed their teeth as their eyes burned with hatred. The destruction of Jianshin's statue was like the death of their parents. It was an unforgivable crime. Chapter 1060. The cries of the saint rulers of Flame City basically rang through the entire city. Everyone heard about the destruction of the captain's statue and immediately fell into an uproar. A large number of mercenaries from the Flame mercenaries leapt onto the walls, quickly making their way to the center of the city. The headquarters of the Flame mercenaries was located to the back of the city. It was a luxurious palace that had been constructed like an imperial palace. This was the core of the Flame mercenaries' authority, where the leaders and managers of the mercenaries lived. Currently, Bai Lian was gathered with the upper echelon of the mercenaries in a green dress. They were sternly discussing matters regarding the development of the mercenaries. Suddenly, a shout pierced through the various obstructions and rang in from outside, interrupting Bai Lian and the others. Bai Lian's face immediately became ugly when she heard that the statue of her brother, Jianshin, had been destroyed. Her eyes shone with a chilling light. "Humph! I'd like to see who it is that dares to destroy my brother's statue. I won't forgive them so easily." Bai Lian was furious. Bai Lian was infuriated beyond words. She slammed the table and stood up, no longer caring about the meeting. She strode out with a dark expression. Behind her, the higher-ups of the Flame mercenaries followed closely behind her. Jianshin hovered several hundred meters in the air in the center of the city. He calmly watched the saint rulers approach him with his arms crossed. Ruijin hovered beside Jianshin emotionlessly. He would glance at the crumbled statue from time to time as some doubt appeared on his face. The saint rulers of Flame City surged with presences. They all drew their saint weapons and surrounded Jianshin and Ruijin. Surging energy pulsed wildly around them, causing the surrounding space to slightly distort. They were ready for battle at any time. "Who are you? Why have you destroyed the statue of Captain Jianshin? Why aren't you moving?" A saint ruler glared at Jianshin and yelled out. However, before he could finish speaking, he was immediately surprised. He stared at Jianshin in a daze as disbelief flooded his face. The saint ruler stared at Jianshin for quite a while before asking with a trembling voice, "Why? Why? Your Captain Jianshin?" "What? Captain Jianshin?" The other 4 saint rulers were surprised when they heard that. They immediately studied Jianshin carefully. Although they had never seen Jianshin's true appearance, they had seen Jianshin's portrait and statue before, so they were familiar with Jianshin's appearance. They immediately discovered that the young man's appearance was exactly the same as Captain Jianshin's. Another tremendous presence appeared and rapidly approached Jianshin. It was the ancestor of the Bai family, Bai Hai. He flew over with Bai Lian with lightning-like speed. Bai Hai and Bai Lian were both pale-faced. Flames of fury burned within them. The destruction of Jianshin's statue had crossed their bottom line. The 2 of them were still thinking about how they could viciously punish the people who had destroyed the statue. However, when Bai Hai and Bai Lian saw Jianqin and Ruijin surrounded by the saint rulers, they became stunned. Their faces were filled with shock, and their flames of fury were completely extinguished, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over them. "Brother, why is it you?" Bai Lian called out. She was both surprised and overjoyed. Bai Hai also stared at Jianqin in shock before looking at the statue that had been reduced to dust. He was confused. Now, he knew that the person who had destroyed the statue was his great-grandson. "Greetings to Captain Jianqin." The saint rulers who had hurried over first finally confirmed Jianqin's identity. They dared not hesitate at all, immediately bowing to Jianqin politely. They were extremely emotional. The captain of the Flame Mercenaries, Jianqin, was a legendary figure on the Tianyuan continent. Even with their strength as saint rulers, they struggled to remain calm when they saw a legendary figure. As for the anger on their bodies, they had long since restrained it. Jianqin stared at Bai Lian's face that had clearly become much thinner, and the anger he felt from the statue vanished in a single moment. Tenderness rose up in his heart, and he took a step forward, arriving before Bai Lian in a single moment. He looked at Bai Lian lovingly and tenderly and gently said, "Lian, I've really troubled you with the matters of the Flame Mercenaries." Bai Lian could not help but smile sweetly when she heard Jianqin's concern and heartache. However, when she glanced past the empty statue in the center of the city, she became confused again. She asked, "Brother, did you destroy the statue?" "Correct. I personally destroyed it." Jianqin looked at the dust that was still drifting down and indifferently replied, "Big brother, I hired over 100 craftsmen and spent a lot of effort to carve this statue. Why did you destroy it? Could it be that the statue wasn't carved properly?" Bai Lian's face was full of grievance, and she looked very pitiful. "Lian, don't be angry. I'm not blaming you. It's just that you don't know anything about the origins of the Flame Mercenaries. The statue in the center of the city doesn't belong to me. It should belong to the first captain of the Flame Mercenaries," Jianqin gently explained. He gazed into the distance as he reminisced. "The first captain? Don't tell me you're not the first captain of the Flame Mercenaries?" Bai Lian's face was filled with shock and disbelief. Jianqin shook his head. "Lian, I'm not the first captain. The first captain is called Kendall. I'm only the second captain." The past flashed through Jianqin's head like a movie. It made Jianqin think back to the days when he and the other members of the Flame Mercenaries roamed the magical Beast Mountains. Even now, he could still clearly remember that the Flame Mercenaries had been hunted down by a Class 5 golden-haired Tiger King in the magical Beast Mountain range many years ago. In the end, except for himself, all the members of the Flame Mercenaries had died in the mouth of the golden-haired Tiger King, including the first leader of the Flame Mercenaries, Uncle Kendall. Uncle Kendall's greatest wish was to develop the Flame Mercenaries into the largest mercenary group on the Tianyuan continent, the strongest mercenary group. As a result, Jianqin shouldered the great ambition of developing the Flame Mercenaries in order to complete Uncle Kendall's final wish. Back then, when Jianqin had just become the second captain of the Flame Mercenaries, he was the only one in the entire group. Only after that did Ming Dong join. Now, so many years had passed. The Flame Mercenaries had developed from an unknown, small mercenary group to a peak mercenary group that could shake up the entire continent. "Brother, who was the first captain of the Flame Mercenaries? Why don't I know anything about him after spending so much time with the mercenaries?" Bai Lian asked. Chapter 1061. All the mercenaries and merchants gathered in the center of the city stared at the huge statue that had grown from the ground in shock. Many of them were confused. The statue had completely replaced Jianqin's statue, but its appearance was different. It was a middle-aged man who seemed to be in his 40s. He was the first captain of the Flame Mercenaries, as well as the founder of the mercenaries, Kendall. Jianqin stared at Kendall's familiar face with mixed feelings. Reminiscence filled his eyes. He would never forget Uncle Kendall's appearance. Uncle Kendall was like a brand, deeply imprinted in the depths of Jinshin's mind. He could not erase it even if he wanted to. Even after so many years, the memory was still fresh in his mind. The statue that seemed to have grown from the ground had been created by Jinshin using his ability to control the earth force. He had condensed the statue from the soil according to his memories of Uncle Kendall. This was not a huge feat any Saint Ruler who had reached Saint Ruler and could control earth-attributed energy would be able to accomplish this easily. However, although the statue had been condensed, it was still very weak and lacked a certain charm. Jinshin slowly closed his eyes. With a thought, the earth-attributed energy in the surroundings immediately began to boil. It surged over from all directions extremely quickly, forming a hazy, earth-yellow light in the end that poured into the statue. With the infusion of the earth attribute energy, the color of Kendall's statue, which was completely made of mud, immediately underwent a subtle change. It began to turn white at a speed visible to the naked eye. Its material was transforming from soft mud to hard rock, becoming harder and harder. Jinshin could control 6 types of energy, including light and darkness. At this moment, he gathered all the earth-attributed energy in a radius of 100 kilometers, doing his best to create the statue. Yu, Baihai, and the 5 Saint Rulers who had joined the Flame Mercenaries all stared at the statue that was becoming harder and harder. Looking at the unfamiliar face on the statue, all of them understood that this was probably the first captain of the Flame Mercenaries that Jinshin had mentioned. Although the statue that represented the honor of the city had completely changed, they did not dare to raise any objections as the upper echelon of the mercenaries. This was because all of this was planned by Captain Jinshin. Jinshin's status in the mercenaries was so great that it could not be replaced by anyone. Even Bai Lian, who was in charge of managing the mercenaries, could not do so. This was because Jinshin had already become a god in the hearts of every single member of the mercenaries. He was the pillar of support for the entire group, so a casual word from him was like an imperial edict. More and more people gathered around the statue, becoming a sea of people very soon. The spacious area was completely packed. Most of them were mercenaries of the Flame Mercenaries. They had all come furiously, wanting to viciously punish the people who had destroyed Jinshin's statue. However, when they saw Bai Lian and the Saint Rulers hovering in the air without doing anything, a few of the smarter people could not help but become suspicious. They felt that the matter was not as severe as they had imagined it to be. Due to the distance and the blind spot, many people failed to see Jinshin's appearance clearly. They failed to recognize Jinshin. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the earth attribute energy that had gathered from all directions finally dissipated. Meanwhile, Uncle Kendall's statue had also reached the perfect stage. The statue had become as tough as steel. Jinshin had even left behind a large amount of earth-attributed energy, so it had become much tougher. Even Heaven's Saint Masters would struggle to destroy it. The statue did not give off any shocking presence. It seemed extremely ordinary, especially his honest and kind face. It had been sculpted to life by Jinshin, as if Kendall was alive. Jinshin stood with his hands behind his back as he stared at the statue affectionately. He said, "Have you seen it clearly? He's the first captain of the Flame Mercenaries. His name is Kendall. The statue in the center of the city should belong to him, not me. If it were not for Captain Kendall, there would not be the current Flame Mercenaries." Bai Lian and the others all stared at the statue with mixed feelings. They were speechless for quite some time because the news was just far too shocking to them. At the same time, the news that Jinshin's statue had been replaced quickly spread through the entire city. It caused a huge uproar in the city as various discussions rang out incessantly. Jinshin only stayed there for a while before returning to the Imperial Palace with Bai Lian and the others. Soon afterward, the news regarding Kendall spread from the Imperial Palace as well, quickly spreading through the entire city. Everyone in the city knew the truth as well as the identity of the statue in the center of the city. Although there were still many people who believed that the statue still belonged to Jianqin, no one objected at all since Jianqin was the one who personally led the matter. No one felt dissatisfied. Jianqin gained an even clearer understanding of the current situation in Flame City from Bai Lian. Everything was obviously smooth sailing. It could be said that ever since Jianqin returned from the Sea Realm and took back Flame City from the Flame Extinguishing Alliance, the status of the Flame Mercenaries on the Tianyuan continent had undergone a drastic change. The development of the Flame Mercenaries had become extraordinarily smooth. Jianqin also learned from Bai Lian that the earliest batch of members he had recruited in Wake City had already completed their training on the Tianyuan continent. They had all returned to Flame City, and with the token Jianqin had given them, they had successfully become a part of the Flame Mercenaries. Jianqin placed great importance on these loyal subordinates of his, so he personally went to meet them. The group of elites had been baptized by blood and tempered by life and death in the past few years. They had already developed steel-like wills, great battle prowess, and fearless spirits. However, after roaming the Tianyuan continent for so many years, they had suffered quite a number of casualties, coupled with the fact that they had roped in a few bold and loyal mercenaries along the way. They still had 65 people. Every single one of them was an Earth Saint Master, and all of them had grasped battle grades. Their strength was incomparable to ordinary people. The cub of the golden-furred Tiger King they had obtained outside Wake City had been sacrificed in an intense battle before it had fully matured. Although no Heaven Saint Master had appeared among the 65 of them in just over a decade, a few of the more talented people had already reached the 6th cycle of Earth Saint Master. They were only a step away from becoming Heaven Saint Masters, and they had even grasped Heaven-tier battle skills. Jianqin had decided many years ago to nurture these people without holding back, so he had sent all of them into the artifact space. He provided them with a quiet environment and all the resources they needed for cultivation so that they could work hard and increase their strength. He had even used extremely precious heavenly resources to improve their talent. Jianqin, even if you use heavenly resources to increase their talent, they'll only reach Saint Ruler in the end due to their innate limitations. Some of them will even struggle to break through to Saint Ruler. Is it worth it for you to spend so much effort to nurture them? Rui Jin felt that Jianqin's actions were not worth it. Right now, the Flame Mercenaries are all supported by me. Although a few Saint Rulers have joined me, they can't be trusted completely. If the Flame Mercenaries want to become a truly powerful mercenary group and remain prosperous on the Tianyuan continent, they need a powerful force that belongs to them. They will be that force in the future, Jianqin said. He did not waver in his determination to nurture these people. As for their aptitude, you don't have to worry about it. Although the increase in aptitude from a 1,000-year-old heavenly treasure is limited, if you use a 10,000-year-old heavenly treasure, they will be reborn. Although I don't have that many 10,000-year-old heavenly treasures, with my current strength, it won't be too difficult if I want to use ordinary heavenly treasures. At the same time, there's a divine item called the Divine Water of the World in the Sea Realm. Its effects are far greater than 10,000-year-old heavenly resources. Once I go to the Sea Realm and find enough Divine Water of the World, all of them will undergo a metamorphosis. They'll be able to reach Saint Ruler at the very least, Jianqin said confidently. Rui Jin fell silent. He did not say anything else. Jianqin obviously had his reasons for doing this. After settling the group of elites, Jianqin and Rui Jin arrived at a mountain range several dozen kilometers away from Flame City. The mountain range was the rich mine where the tungsten alloy had been discovered. However, after so many years of mining, this mountain range was no longer as majestic as it used to be. It was now full of potholes. Several mountaintops had been dug up, and several large pits had been dug in the areas where the tungsten alloy mines were more concentrated. It had to be mentioned that the tungsten alloy mine contained an extremely large amount of tungsten alloy. Even after the construction of a sizable city, there was still quite a lot of tungsten alloy left. However, the tungsten alloy was extremely pure, making it extremely difficult to mine. Even a full-powered strike from a Heaven Saint Master would struggle to leave behind a mark. As a result, the Flame mercenaries had already given up on mining the tungsten alloy because they did not have the ability to do so. Chapter 1062. Jianchen hovered in the air above the mountains as he stared down in interest. He had already expanded the senses of his soul as hard as he could, quickly passing through the various obstructions and entering the ground. When he had first discovered the tungsten alloy mine, the Grand Elder of Mercenary City, Tianjian, had discovered that there was a ball of origin energy hidden within the mine. It was extremely powerful and could assist 9th Heavenly Layer Saint rulers in breaking through to Holy Emperor. It was an extremely rare treasure in the world. Moreover, Jianchen had learned from the sword spirits that the origin energy hidden in the tungsten alloy mine was the origin energy of the metal spirit of the 5 elements. Jianchen's senses penetrated the tough tungsten alloy mine and reached several hundred meters underground. He could clearly sense an extremely powerful ball of energy pulsing slowly there. It was extremely pure, without any impurities at all. Senior Ruijin, you must have discovered that there's something else hidden within the tungsten alloy mine, right? Jianchen asked as he stared down. A gleam of light flashed through Ruijin's eyes. He nonchalantly said, "Correct, there's an extremely pure and powerful energy hidden there. However, there's a thick layer of tungsten alloy around the energy. There aren't a lot of people on the Tianyuan continent who can break through this layer of tungsten alloy, so it's very difficult to remove the energy. Senior Ruijin, may I ask if you can remove it with your current strength?" Jianchen asked. Although the origin energy of the metal spirit was no longer of any use to him, he still wanted to use it on someone else. "Since you need it, I'll try using the Sacred Dragon's Sword of the Dragon Clan," Jianchen slowly said. Soon after, a tremendous pressure radiated from his body. The Sacred Dragon's sword in his hand began to shine with a dense white light. Terrifying ripples of energy caused the surrounding space to violently distort as if it was about to shatter. The origin energy of the metal spirit has actually become much more powerful than last time. It's actually maturing in the past few years. Master, make Ruijin stop. Ruijin's actions will destroy the origin energy of the metal spirit. Suddenly, the voices of the sword spirits rang out in Jianchen's head. Ruijin had already raised the Sacred Dragon sword and was about to swing it down. "Senior Ruijin, there's no need to hurry." Jianchen reacted extremely quickly. He immediately made Ruijin stop before sending his consciousness into his sea of consciousness to ask the sword spirits, "Master, this is the origin energy of the metal spirit that's rapidly maturing. If it's given enough time, it will become even more powerful in the future. It might even develop intelligence and become a spirit, an existence similar to the barrier spirit in Mercenary City. However, if you take it out now, you'll be destroying it without a doubt," Ziying explained to Jianchen. A sliver of surprise appeared in Jianchen's eyes. After a moment of silence, he said, "Then roughly how long will it take for it to fully mature?" "We can't predict that. Everything will depend on how quickly it matures. However, the origin energy of the metal spirit will become more powerful the longer it's left. If it develops intelligence, it'll become an innate spirit. It'll possess a unique advantage, and its cultivation speed will be heaven-defying. It'll definitely have great accomplishments in the future," Ziying explained. "The world formation spirit in Mercenary City is also a spirit body derived from energy. However, it was only transformed from the essence of the earth. In terms of rank, it's still a level lower than the 5 elements metal spirit source. It's just a pity that the world formation spirit was congenitally deficient. Otherwise, her achievements would have far surpassed her current level." Qing Sua sighed. "It's just that the chances of developing intelligence and becoming an innate spirit are just far too low. We can't be certain whether the origin energy of the metal spirit can develop intelligence or not. It'll all depend on its luck, Xing said. Jianqin hesitated slightly after hearing what the sword spirits had said. In the end, he gave up on the idea of extracting the origin energy of the metal spirit right now. Since the origin energy still had a lot of room for growth, it would be better to give it some more time. It would obviously be best if it developed intelligence and became an innate spirit. Even if it did not develop intelligence, it would become even more powerful after a period of nurturing. At that time, the benefits of increasing his strength would be even greater. Senior Ruijin, let's just leave the origin energy here for a while. It won't be too late to retrieve it when we need it in the future, Jianqin said to Ruijin. That's up to you to decide. When you need it, I can help you break through the tungsten alloy, Ruijin said. Jianqin's status in his heart was rapidly rising. He had already become someone on the same level as him. Ignoring the fact that he needed Jianqin's help, just Jianqin's talent and speed of growth was enough to make him look at him in a new light. At this moment, Jianqin and Ruijin's eyes narrowed. The two of them looked into the distance at the same time. They saw a faint 5-colored light appear on the horizon, dyeing the sky with all sorts of colors. It was quite a beautiful sight. Another person has become a saint ruler. Looking at the direction, it shouldn't be too far from the kingdom of Jessen, Jianqin murmured. He was extremely calm. Ruijin stared in that direction. He only glanced at it casually before losing interest. Someone becoming a saint ruler was an extremely great matter in the eyes of ordinary people, but it was nothing in the eyes of experts at his level. Jianqin did not pay too much attention to the 5-colored clouds in the distance. If it were a few years ago, saint rulers would have been extremely powerful hermits in his eyes, but now saint rulers had become extremely weak in his eyes, as weak as ants. He really did not care about people at that level. He was not interested at all. Jianqin and Ruijin left the mountains where the tungsten alloy mine was and returned to Flame City. At the same time, they passed a piece of flaming jadeite that had been filled with energy by Ruijin and could unleash an attack on par with the Holy Emperor at great perfection to Bai Lian. It was to be used as the treasure of Flame City. Afterward, Jianqin summoned the 5 saint rulers who had joined the Flame Mercenaries and spoke with them. He made some promises and told them about the consequences of betrayal. Afterward, he went to visit De Gufeng. Originally, he wanted De Gufeng to temporarily put aside his matters and focus on cultivation. But De Gufeng liked his current position very much, so there was nothing Jianqin could do about it. Although he had basically enslaved De Gufeng back then, he had always treated De Gufeng as a very good friend. He did not force De Gufeng to do anything, so Jianqin would not interfere with De Gufeng's choice. Jianqin, the difference in strength between us is like the difference between the heavens and earth. I won't be able to catch up to you no matter how hard I cultivate, so there's no point in me following you. The only thing I can do is manage Flame City for you. The Flame Mercenaries may be very powerful right now, but they've developed too quickly. It's led to many internal problems that haven't been able to keep up with the pace of development. The most severe ones are the various punishments and discipline. If these two matters aren't dealt with properly, the mercenaries will cause trouble sooner or later. This was the explanation Du Gufeng gave to Jianqin, as well as the reason why he had taken on the roles of disciplinary elder and disciplinary elder. Jianqin stayed in Flame City for 2 days. After handing over some matters, he left with Baihai and returned to Changyang Prefecture through the space gate Ruijin had constructed. As soon as Jianqin returned to Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Zhuyanshao came looking for him. He then called Jianqin to the discussion hall. Ruijin and Baihai both went to rest, so they did not go with him. When Jianqin entered the majestic discussion hall, he discovered a few strangers seated there. They were an old man and 3 women, but to Jianqin's surprise, Yu, who had been cultivating in the bright moon divine hall in outer space, was actually present as well. Her complexion was very ugly. Jianqin's heart sank slightly when he saw Yu Yu's expression. He had already sensed something, so he glanced past the four strangers and studied them. The old man had white hair and a ruddy complexion. He gave off an otherworldly presence, making him seem like an old immortal. He sat there leisurely without saying anything. Jianqin had seen this old man before. He was one of the great elders of the Protector clan in Changyang Prefecture. His strength had reached the 6th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. As for the 3 women, one of them was a graceful, middle-aged woman. She was a saint ruler, while the other 2 only seemed to be in their 20s. They were quite pretty and were heaven saint masters. Jianqin, this is one of the 7 great elders of Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Qingjuri. He's your great-grandfather in terms of seniority. Changyang Zuyun Xiao introduced him to Jianqin. Changyang Qingjuri's gaze had been fixed on Jianqin ever since Jianqin had entered. He immediately stood up from his chair when he heard Changyang Zuyun Xiao's introduction. He smiled amiably and said, "You must be Shangtian. You really are a talent. Our Protector clan in Changyang Prefecture has benefited from you quite a bit. Sit. Changyang Qingjuri was extremely polite to Jianqin. Although Jianqin was his junior, he did not dare to put on any airs before Jianqin. Jianqin politely returned the greeting before sitting down beside Yu Yu. He looked at Yu Yu's troubled expression and gently asked, "What's going on?" Yu clearly let out a sigh of relief when she saw Jianqin arrive in time. She seemed to have found someone she could rely on right now. Her worry quickly vanished, and she said to Jianqin, "Jianqin, they want my bright moon divine hall." Chapter 1063. Jianqin's gaze suddenly sharpened. Anger rose up from the bottom of his heart uncontrollably. His gaze toward Changyang Qingjuri underwent a drastic change as well. It became extremely hostile. The bright moon divine hall now belonged to Yu Yu. It was something that Yu Yu needed for cultivation, because only through the bright moon divine hall could Yu quickly absorb moonlight force and increase her strength. If she lost the bright moon divine hall, Yu Yu's path of cultivation would become much slower. At the same time, the bright moon divine hall had strengthened Yu Yu's ability to protect herself, so Jianqin no longer had to worry about Yu Yu's safety. However, the people of the Changyang Prefecture actually wanted to take away Yu Yu's bright moon divine hall, which made Jianqin extremely furious. "Is you telling the truth? You want to take away the bright moon divine hall?" Jianqin suddenly stood up as he glared at Changyang Qingjuri. His presence was forceful, and he did not show any respect at all. He did not care about the seniority of his great-grandfather at all. Changyang Zuyun Xiao sat on the chair beside Jianqin. He looked at the furious Jianqin, but he showed no intentions of stopping or persuading him. He sat there leisurely and drank tea. He said nothing, as if he had seen nothing. Changyang Qingjuri had expected Jianqin to react like this long ago. He maintained his amiable smile and said in no hurry, "Shangtian, it's not what you think it is. Our Changyang Prefecture has only considered that Yu Yu's strength is rather weak, and that the bright moon divine hall is an extremely precious treasure, enough to make anyone on the Tianyuan continent jealous. If we keep the bright moon divine hall with Yu Yu, it'll probably cause endless trouble for Yu Yu. It might even be taken away by some powerful people. As a result, our Changyang Prefecture has decided to let Yu Yu leave the bright moon divine hall with our Protector clan. That way, we can guarantee that nothing will go wrong." "In other words, you want to take away the bright moon divine hall for Yu's sake," Jianqin sneered. Changyang Qingjuri could obviously hear the mockery in Jianqin's voice. He remained calm on the surface, but he was filled with bitterness inside. He knew that it was basically impossible to take away the bright moon divine hall from Yu. After a moment of silence, Changyang Qingjuri said again, "Shangtian, I know what you're worried about, but you don't have to worry. You're already a part of our Changyang Prefecture, so we obviously won't do anything to hurt you. Letting Yu leave the Bright Moon Divine Hall in Chanyang Prefecture is indeed only beneficial to her. She'll still be the owner of the Bright Moon Divine Hall. I thank you for your kindness on you Er's behalf, but the Bright Moon Divine Hall is indestructible. It's not as fragile as regular divine halls. With the Bright Moon Divine Hall protecting you, even the Holy Emperor can't do anything to her. As a result, leaving the Bright Moon Divine Hall in Chanyang Prefecture is completely unnecessary, Jianqin said. Chanyang Qingjuri's heart immediately skipped a beat when he heard that even the Holy Emperor could not do anything to the Bright Moon Divine Hall. He thought the Bright Moon Divine Hall is actually so powerful. It's basically on par with the Divine Hall left behind by Mo Tianyin in Mercenary City. If our Chanyang Prefecture had a divine hall like that, why would we need to fear the other protector clans and the Beast God continent? Chanyang Qingjuri suddenly became rather emotional. Although the 10 protector clans possessed quite a few divine halls, none of them could stop the attacks of the Holy Emperor. If they possessed a divine hall that even the Holy Emperor could not destroy, their Chanyang Prefecture would definitely be able to ignore the Path Lord of Carnal Desires and the Holy Emperor of the Beast God continent. They would become the only clan on the Tianyuan continent that could contend against Mercenary City. Even now, Chanyang Qingjuri could still clearly remember that the 10 protector clans had clashed with Mercenary City several tens of thousand years ago. The protector clans had mobilized over 20 Holy Emperor experts. It was an unprecedented scale, several times larger than Mercenary City's, yet Mercenary City had only sent a single person. She had used a powerful divine hall to stop over 20 Holy Emperor experts from the protector clans, which had shaken up the entire continent. Seeing how Chanyang Qingjuri remained silent, the middle-aged woman who had come with him said, Chanyang Shoten, legend has it, that Fairy Haoyue's cultivation method is the only one on the Tianyuan continent that can surpass the Saint Tier, and it's only suitable for women. Since Yu has already become the Fairy Haoyue's disciple, she must have obtained the cultivation method. Why don't we get Yu to donate the cultivation method? It'll be a great contribution to the clan on one hand, and it'll also increase the strength of our Chanyang Prefecture on the other hand. If all the women in our Chanyang Prefecture cultivate such a cultivation method, the strength of our Chanyang Prefecture will completely surpass the 9 other clans before long. Jianqin's face became even uglier. Not only did the protector clan of Chanyang Prefecture want Yu's Bright Moon Divine Hall, they even wanted Fairy Haoyue's cultivation method. He could not accept this. Jianqin clenched his fists tightly. His fury had reached its limit. If it were not for the fact that they were all people of Chanyang Prefecture and were not outsiders, he would have chased them away long ago. Chanyang Shoten, you're a member of our protector clan of Chanyang Prefecture, and Yu is your fiancé. Speaking of which, we're all on the same side. According to the rules of our clan, every single clansman of the clan must place the clan as the core. Yu's cultivation method is extremely important to the clan, so she should donate it to the clan, the middle-aged woman continued. Enough. Shut up. Jianqin could not hold it in any longer. He slammed his hand on the armrest of the chair, and the powerful force reduced it to dust. He glared at the middle-aged woman and Chanyang Qingjuri and coldly said, Don't talk about the benefits and interests of the clan. Don't talk about the rules and benefits of the clan in front of me. Whether it's the Bright Moon Divine Hall or Fairy Haoyue's cultivation method, no one can take them away unless you is willing. Otherwise, they'll be opposing me. Chanyang Shoten, how dare you speak to your elders like that? That's outrageous. Don't think that you can ignore the rules and elders of the clan just because you're strong. I may not be as strong as you, but you should still call me great aunt in terms of seniority, the middle-aged woman sternly said. She wanted to use her seniority to bully Jianqin. Jianqin sneered disdainfully. You don't have the right to be my great aunt. Everyone, my Chanyang Prefecture, does not welcome you. Please leave. Jianqin made an inviting gesture and directly told them to leave. How dare you? Changyang Shoten, do you know who great-grandfather Juri is? He's one of the great elders of our protector clan. Why, you actually dare to treat great-grandfather Juri like that? You're disrespectful to your elders. A woman, who was only a heaven saint master beside the middle-aged woman, furiously stood up and pointed at Jianchen. Changyang Qingjuri was unable to remain as calm as before. He was a great elder of a protector clan in the Changyang prefecture. Just how great was his status? Now that he had been told to leave by a junior of the clan, he was completely humiliated. If it were not for the fact that the junior before him possessed a rather special status, he would have taught him a lesson long ago. He would never have endured until now. Let's go. Changyang Qingjuri glanced at Changyang Zuyun Shao, who had remained silent the entire time. With a wave of his hand, he angrily left with the middle-aged woman and the two other women. Changyang Zuyun Shao slowly stood up after Changyang Qingjuri's departure. He let out a long sigh at the sky. His face was filled with helplessness. Jianchen, the two requests that Changyang Qingjuri and the others have made are indeed the rules of the clan, so I can't help you with this matter. You don't understand our protector clan. The rules of our protector clan are extremely strict, and they have been passed down since ancient times. Even the great elders are unwilling to break them. I hope you can understand. Changyang Zuyun Shao gently sighed. I don't care how strict the rules of the Changyang prefecture are. If they want to take anything from you, I, Jianchen, will definitely not allow it. However, I hope you won't interfere, Jianchen said. You don't need to worry about that. You're a member of my Zhu branch, so we definitely won't make things difficult for you. This includes your great-grandfather, Changyang Zhu Shao. Changyang Zhu Yin Shao sternly said. Jianchen, great-grandfather Yin Shao, your worries are actually unnecessary. Even if I want to give up the Bright Moon Divine Hall and Master's cultivation method, I can't because the Bright Moon Divine Hall is still in Master's hands. I only have partial control over the Bright Moon Divine Hall. As for Master's cultivation method, there's no need to worry. Even if they get it, they won't be able to cultivate it. If they want to cultivate this kind of cultivation method, they must have a special physique. And this kind of physique can only be transformed by Master himself. Yu said, they might not believe me if I say that. Although Fairy Haoyue isn't dead, she's only a soul. She's not as intimidating as before, Changyang Zuyun Shao said. Changyang Zuyun Shao said in thought. After a moment of hesitation, he said, Jianchen, the seal in Kong, Er's head still hasn't been removed. The clan wants to wait until you return to the clan before we work together with the 7 great elders to remove the seal. I don't care what you think of the Changyang clan, but I do hope that you can find some time to return to the clan and relieve Kong, of the pain that has tormented him for 1,000 years. Chapter 1064. Jianchen left the discussion hall with Yu. The two of them went to visit Bai Yuntian and Changyang Ba. During their conversation, Bai Yuntian brought up the matter of Jianchen and Yu's marriage again. However, this time, both Jianchen and Yu declined at the same time. Although Jianchen already possessed the power to protect himself, he still had many matters to deal with. As a result, he did not have the time to think about relationships. Yu now possessed the Bright Moon Divine Hall and Fairy Haoyue's cultivation method. Her only goal was to focus all of her efforts on cultivation and increase her strength. Only when her strength reached a level where she could help Jianchen would she consider marriage. After bidding farewell to the 2 elders, Yu did not spend much time with Jianchen before entering the Bright Moon Divine Hall again. She was taken to the void beyond the heavens by the Divine Hall to cultivate. Once I bring Chang Bo, great-grandfather by Hai, Yangling, and Senior Huang, Tenba to Mercenary City, I'll immediately go to the protector clan of Changyang Prefecture and get them to remove the seal in great-grandfather Changyang Zuyingkong's head. Jianchen thought to himself. The main reason he had gone to Flame City this time was to bring back Bai Hai. He planned to bring Bai Hai to Mercenary City and have Xiao Ling decipher the mysteries of the world to assist Bai Hai in his cultivation. I'm only missing Senior Huang Tianba now. I just happen to be close to the Huang family, so I'll go alone. Jianchen shot up like a cannonball, rising into the sky with great speed. He flew in the direction of the Huang family with lightning-like speed, disappearing in the blink of an eye. However, he could not help but think of a beautiful figure. He thought, it's been so many years. I wonder how Luaner is doing. With her talent, she must have made great progress in the past few years. Jianchen flew even faster. The Huang family was over 30,000 kilometers away from the kingdom of Jessen. With Jianchen's speed, he only needed 2 hours to arrive at the beautiful mountain range where the Huang family resided. Jianchen landed outside the entrance of the Huang family. As he did not conceal his presence, he was discovered by the experts of the Huang family as soon as he arrived. Immediately, several Heaven Saint Masters flew over. When they recognized Jianchen, they were all shocked. Their stern faces immediately lit up with smiles as they politely invited Jianchen into the clan with respect. Jianchen's current reputation on the Tianyuan continent was known to all the hermit clans. His current status was no longer the same as it was in the past. Today, he suddenly came to visit the Huang family. Everyone in the Huang family was flattered. Not only did the Huang family's patriarch come out to greet him, even the elders who were cultivating in seclusion at the back of the Huang family's mountain came out one after another. Although Jianchen was younger than any of them, he was still a supreme expert at the level of the Holy Emperor. On the Tianyuan continent, where strength reigned supreme, he was the undisputed king. Jianchen was not used to the Huang family going to such great lengths to receive him. After exchanging some pleasantries with the patriarch, he got straight to the point. Patriarch, I've come this time to find Senior Huang Tianba. May I ask if Senior Huang is present? The ancestor has always been cultivating in the back mountains and hasn't shown himself for many years. Since little brother Jianchen wants to see the ancestor, I'll take you to him right now, said the patriarch. Afterward, he flew to the back mountains with Jianchen under the accompaniment of the experts of the Huang family. Very soon, Jianchen arrived at the sword-shaped mountain where Huang Tianba cultivated. The mountain was enveloped by a barrier, and an old wooden hut stood there all by itself. Greetings to the ancestor. Ancestor, little brother Jianchen has come to our Huang family. The patriarch of the Huang family stood outside the barrier and said politely to the wooden hut on the mountain peak. Jianchen stared at the wooden hut indifferently. A sliver of surprise appeared in his eyes. Patriarch, there's no need to call him. Senior Huang Tianba is not here. What? The ancestor is not here? The patriarch was stunned. He was surprised. Jianchen nodded slightly and expanded the senses of his soul, enveloping the surrounding 1,000 kilometers in an attempt to find Huang Tianba. However, he found nothing in the end. Since I can't find him within 1,000 kilometers, it'll be the same even if I expand the senses of my soul to several thousand kilometers away. It looks like Senior Huang Tianba has already left the clan, Jianchen thought. After a moment of thought, the patriarch said, Little brother Jianchen, Huang Wan has already taken the ancestor of the Huanggu clan as her master. She has been cultivating in the Huanggu clan all these years, and the ancestor treats her like a treasure. Since the ancestor isn't here, he's probably gone to the Huanggu clan to visit her. Huang Wan is in the Huanggu clan. Jianchen thought of something and said, I'll pay a visit to the Huanggu clan then. Jianchen politely declined the patriarch's invitation to stay. He hurried over as soon as he found out where the Huanggu clan was. The Huanggu clan was located in the south, hidden in a forest filled with magical beasts and shrouded by a layer of mist all year round. Very few people knew of its existence. There was a 1,000-meter-tall tower at the very center of the Huanggu clan. This tower was the Huanggu clan. This tower was the most sacred place of the Huanggu clan, as it was where the ancestor cultivated. At this moment, on the top floor of the tower, in a completely sealed and slightly gloomy secret room, an old, beggar-like man with disheveled hair was tied up by a thick iron chain and hung in the air. The old man was very strong. Every time he struggled, the iron chain would clatter, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not damage the iron chain at all. "Bastard, you will pay for this. If I, Huang Tianba, escape, I will never spare you," the chained old man said hoarsely. His voice was filled with hatred. Before him, the ancestor of the Huanggu clan stood there leisurely. A cold smile lingered on his lips. "Huang Tianba, do you think you still have a chance at revenge? Why don't you think about your current situation? Do you think you still have the ability to escape? I'd advise you to just give up." Chapter 1065. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan sneered. "Huang Tianba, your precious granddaughter has already become a saint ruler, and my plan is about to succeed. You're about to die, so I don't mind telling you. Huang Tianba, have you heard of the water spirit's body?" the ancestor asked. "Water spirit's body? What water spirit's body? What does that have to do with my precious granddaughter?" Huang Tianba asked. He did not know anything about the water spirit's body. "I don't think you know either," the ancestor sneered. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan sneered and explained. "The scripture of sunflower aqua that I cultivate is a Saint tier cultivation method of the water element. It contains information about the water spirit's body. The water spirit's body is an extremely rare and special constitution on the Tianyuan continent. It rarely appears on the Tianyuan continent, rarely even appearing once in 100,000 years. Anyone who possesses this constitution will possess a unique advantage when it comes to cultivating water attribute cultivation methods. Not only will they improve at an astonishing rate, but their future accomplishments will be limitless as well. They possess the potential to become the Holy Emperor." The ancestor's eyes shone brightly as soon as he mentioned the Holy Emperor. He was filled with yearning. "Could it be that my precious granddaughter possesses the water spirit's body, and you have other intentions for taking her in as a disciple and teaching her the scripture of the aquatic sunflower?" Huang Tianba's eyes shone brightly as he stared at the ancestor of the Huanggu clan. "That's right. Huang Wan possesses the water spirit's body that only appears once in 100,000 years. However, her water spirit's body hasn't been completely activated yet. If it weren't for the wondrous scripture of the aquatic sunflower, probably no one would have been able to discover her water spirit's body beforehand." The ancestor laughed aloud. "Bastard! So you want to control Wan, and turn her into a puppet of your Huanggu clan." Huang Tianba was furious. His body that was tied up in the air struggled violently, causing the chains to make clanking noises. "Control? Ha ha ha! I've spent so much effort and even taught her the scripture of the aquatic sunflower. It's not as simple as just controlling her. I only want to help her unleash the potential of the water spirit's body as soon as possible. And then I'll use a special secret technique to absorb all the potential and pure water-attributed saint force within her. My strength will skyrocket, and I'll break through to the level of the Holy Emperor. I'll even have hopes of becoming a saint emperor in the future." The ancestor's eyes burned with desire. "Bastard, you won't succeed. My precious granddaughter is Jianshin's woman. Not only is Jianshin a genius with a limitless future, but he also has a close relationship with the Grand Elder of Mercenary City. If you hurt my precious granddaughter at all, Jianshin will never let you go." Huang Tianba roared with a hoarse voice. His eyes were filled with hatred. Deep fear immediately appeared in the depths of the ancestor's eyes when he heard about Jianshin. Although he had not left the clan in the past few years, he knew about the rumors that had spread extremely well. In particular, he knew more about Jianshin than Huang Tianba. He had fended off the 10 protector clans all by himself and forced them to retreat in the end. Just how powerful was he? However, The ancestor seemed to think of something soon after. The fear in his eyes immediately vanished, and he sneered, "Huang Tianba, you're still thinking about Jianqin even now. I admit that I am very afraid of this talented junior. But how is it possible for Jianqin to come to my clan? And even if he comes, he won't be able to do anything to me." The ancestor of the Huanggu clan smiled evilly. "Moreover, your precious granddaughter has successfully become a saint ruler now. The potential of the water spirit's body has been completely awakened. I'll go find your precious granddaughter right now. Very soon, another Saint King will appear on the Tianyuan continent. Once that's done, there's no point in keeping you two alive. I only need to destroy the corpses, and I'll be free of worries. No matter how great Jianqin's abilities are, he won't be able to learn about what happened here. Bastard, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost." Huang Tianba trembled violently as he roared out furiously. However, his voice was so powerless. With the current situation, he was indeed meat on the chopping block in the hands of the ancestor of the Huanggu clan. His strength had been sealed, so he could not fight back even if he wanted to. "Ha ha ha ha, Huang Tianba, just stay here and witness the birth of another Saint King on the Tianyuan continent," Jianqin laughed. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan laughed, wildly, as if becoming a holy emperor was an unchangeable fact. The ancestor of the Huanggu clan slowly backed out with a complacent smile. However, just when he was about to close the door to the room, a booming voice suddenly rang out from outside. "The captain of the Flame Mercenaries, Senior Jianqin, has come to visit the Huanggu clan." Jianqin's voice was indifferent, but it turned into a visible wave of sound that spread out in all directions. Not only did it cause all the buildings in the clan to tremble slightly, but it also passed through the various obstructions, clearly reaching the ears of everyone in the clan. Even the people in the sealed rooms were no exception. The expression of the ancestor of the Huanggu clan, who was about to close the door, suddenly changed when he heard the voice. His complacent smile vanished at that moment, and his face became extremely ugly. Intense fear and dread filled his eyes. "Jianqin, it's actually Jianqin. Jianqin has come to my Huanggu clan." The ancestor was no longer able to maintain his composure from before. His heart began to thump uncontrollably, and even he did not realize that his body had begun to tremble slightly. "Oh no, we're in trouble now. That goddamn Jianqin. How did he find this place? Why couldn't he have come a little later?" The ancestor's heart chilled. The thing he did not want to happen the most had still happened in the end. "Ha ha ha ha, it's little brother Jianqin. Little brother, Jianqin has come. Little brother Jianqin has the support of the Grand Elder of Mercenary City. Bastard, I'd like to see what you're going to do now." Huang Tianba's despairing heart was filled with vigor once again. At that moment, he seemed to have grasped a sliver of light in the endless darkness, seeing the hope of escaping. Bang! The ancestor suddenly closed the door to the secret room, as if he was afraid that Jianqin would hear Huang Tianba's voice. The ancestor's face became extremely ugly. He became uneasy and wanted to flee, but when he thought about Jianqin's current strength, he immediately gave up on that thought. Suddenly, a gleam of light flashed through the ancestor's eyes. He said, "Jianqin may have come to my Huanggu clan, but he doesn't know what I did to Huang Tianba and Huang Wan. If that's the case, the worst hasn't happened yet. I still have a sliver of hope. Moreover, I still have a final trump card." The ancestor immediately calmed down when he thought of that. He quickly dismissed his emotions and left the tower like nothing had happened. He personally went to welcome Jianqin.